All right, let's call this meeting to order. This is the Doraville City Council meeting being held on July 16th, 2025 at 6 p.m. at the temporary Doraville City Hall. I will call the roll. Mayor Geierman, I'm here. Councilmember Evans.
Here.
Councilmember Henshaw.
Here.
Councilmember Ray.
Here.
Councilmember Armistead.
Here.
Councilmember Simmons.
Here.
Councilmember Coons.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. All right, I'd like to ask everyone in the room to please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, would anyone like to make a motion to approve tonight's meeting agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, next up, we're going to have public comment. I know there are a lot of people here for a public hearing. You're welcome to speak whenever, but we will make sure everyone who wants to speak for the public hearing has time to do that and get it on the record. That said, right now is public comment, so anyone wishing to speak, feel free to come up to the podium and you can have up to 3 minutes to speak on any topic you wish. And just state your name, where you live.
Ron Harwick, Aspen Woods. I want to thank you guys for the rats. I want to thank you guys for the possum, the raccoon, tons of flies, a red-tailed hawk, and I want to thank you guys for illegal dumping. I want to thank you all for messing up, causing havoc. For 20 years, I've been in Doraville, and you all been our worst nightmare. But that table's going to turn today. You guys are the worst. I hope you guys got another job, because we are going to fire you. We are going to get rid of you. You voted out. You're going to need that lawyer, the one that you say that can't remember his name, and Gerald. You challenged me in the boxing ring. I accept that challenge. And Sid, he's not here, but I'm quite sure he's on the TV. I got your private message, but say to me what you want to say, man to man. Okay? Now, you all have made and we're not apartment, we are condos, townhouses. We are not apartment. We're not a private street. You gave us all kinds of names. You never did want to take your responsibility. And now you're trying to run us out of our community. Well, that's not going to happen. Aspen Woods is not for sale. For you guys that's on sale real estate, it's not for sale. You can tell your developers and all those individuals that's been coming around, it's not for sale. Now, I just want to pray for you. I want to pray that lightning bolt comes down, trees come down, and all those rodents that we have, and the stench. We had a dumping of some foul waste. We caught the guy. All because of you guys. Each and every last one of you guys. You brought the dumpster in, and that's where we're going to put you. You fired. You have your notice. And I take any of those challenges. Gerald, set the date. We're in the ring. The lawyer that you say that can't remember his name, you're going to need him. And we're going to give you a lot of publicity. We're going to do everything to make your life miserable. And now you're talking about rezoning. We know how that's going to turn out. Just like those dumpsters. And by the way, they put the dumpster next to the dumpster.
All right, thank you.
Sad stuff.
Next, please.
I'm Linda Lee. I have 3 questions. two are about sanitation. At the stand-up meeting at the end of Aspen Woods Court on May the 3rd, I asked how much it would cost for Doraville. No. What, this? Yeah. I don't know about these things. At that May 3rd meeting, I asked how much it would cost for Doraville to break the contract with Waste Pro. And the answer was you'd have to check into it. So who was that and what is the answer?
We can't answer questions here. You just give your comment.
Oh, okay. On June the 6th, I sent an email to Chris Ford saying there are still 4 DeKalb County roll carts in Aspen Woods. They were supposed to be gone by the end of May. I had already called DeKalb Sanitation, but they said the owners of the roll carts would have to contact them. I could not get DeKalb Sanitation to understand that we are no longer their customers. The roll carts are still there on Aspen Woods entry. Will you please get these out of our neighborhood? A third thing is I left a voicemail message for the zoning office after hours last Thursday, July the 10th. As far as I know, no one has returned my call because I'm at home most of the time and I have an answering machine. That is rude or negligent. And I would like somebody to return my call. If that message has been erased, I can give my phone number to the appropriate person.
Thank you. Next.
My name's Bill Pennington. I live in the Winters Chapel Hills neighborhood, and I first have a little bitty beef, okay? Garbage pickup, you change garbage systems. Great, I don't have care one way or the other, except now for me to be the good citizen and and recycle, I've got to pay a fee. To me, that's a $15 tax increase. So bottom line, it does me no good whatsoever. I hope the city's making more money or something out of it. I didn't like that. And by the way, I'm ducking my home trash in the garbage. And it just, I'd rather recycle, but I don't want to pay an extra fee for it. Okay. Number 2, I'm talking about rezoning in our area, and I have exactly the different reaction. Austin has been extremely gracious in answering my questions and my comments, and I do appreciate that. And they have relieved many of my concerns. My bottom line concern is, I see the map, we're going to rezone, and you're rezoning Winters Chapel Road. I just don't see how that's going to be feasible with the traffic and everything, but be it may. But the actual wording mentioned Chicopee Drive and Homeland. The map shows just the pieces on the end, but the language mentions those 2 streets. I want to be absolutely certain that the zoning doesn't go down those 2 streets as well. If you do, we've got a neighborhood that's 3 blocks long and 3 blocks wide, and now we'll have a strip down the middle, both sides. That would really destroy our neighborhood. So I'm not real fond of the zoning, but Austin's done a pretty good job of helping me to relieve some of my concerns. Thank you, Austin. It's a positive, see?
Anyone else wishing to make public comment? Are there hands raised? All right. All right, let's bring Brian on. Brian, once you're unmuted, you can speak.
All right. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right. Perfect. All right. Here we go. So we wish to express our significant concerns regarding the proposed rezonings of sections R1 single-family residential neighborhood areas to a T4 urban designation. Now, while we recognize the city's broader housing objectives, we believe this reclassification could fundamentally alter our community's established character, quality of life, and the very essence of what makes it a home for many residents. This rezoning is not merely just a technical adjustment. It represents a shift that could lead to a replacement of single-family detached dwellings with multifamily housing and commercial use. This could potentially be introducing a range of adverse effects. Adjacent streets such as Addison, where I live on Addison Drive, by the way, They're already struggling with unrestrained cut-through traffic. They can anticipate a notable increase in congestion. Traffic, as well as existing roads and intersections, may struggle to accommodate a higher volume of not only vehicles but pedestrians. It's difficult to claim increased walkability when there's a notable lack of sidewalks in many areas. Furthermore, the introduction, of commercial zoning could facilitate the establishment of businesses that may not entirely be compatible with a residential setting, potentially leading to increased noise, altered light patterns, and a modified sense of neighborhood tranquility. So the unique charm and community cohesion fostered by our current residential fabric could be diminished. It could potentially be transitioning to a more transient and less interconnected urban environment. Experiences that in other areas are actually suggesting that upzoning may contribute to gentrification and replacement of more affordable housing options with higher cost, often perpetual rent, luxury units, rather than addressing broader housing affordability goals. Some communities have also reported an increase in activities that can be less desirable in a traditional residential context when higher density and mixed use areas are introduced. So we respectfully request that you reconsider or at least postpone revising the rezoning proposal and instead focus on solving the existing issues Doraville is experiencing. In other words, let's not borrow trouble, right? Once those are resolved, we suggest you explore more targeted, thoughtful development strategies to increase the availability of more affordable, missing middle housing, such as duplexes, triplexes, that will support urban growth without compromising the established character and well-being of our single-family communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, looks like Tom Hart. So Tom, when you come over, if you could unmute and state your name, where you live. Okay, you should be able to talk now.
You hear me? Okay.
Uh,
I had a difficult time getting online. You had some.
we can hear you now.
Huh?
We can hear you.
Okay. There are some technical problems tonight, so I had a hard time getting on. Okay, first of all, this is about the rezoning issue. We've already struggled with this in our neighborhood, which is Gordon Heights. And since we used to have 5 or 6 representatives from Gordon Heights neighborhood, of which we have none now. So there's no one to speak for on the behalf of this neighborhood on this important issue. First of all, this is a city-initiated rezoning, which means it didn't come from the neighborhood. And you don't see a developer on the list here is why they want to do this. This comes from the city hall government. And particularly, we'd like to know who specifically thought this was a good idea. This is a suburban environment. The reason why people live in these R1 homes, they like the quiet, the clean air, etc. Okay. And we have a city government that wants to turn the entire area into an urban environment. The city of Doraville already has a well-recognized problem with air quality and noise pollution because of all the transit that runs through the city, both GDOT and from DeKalb County. So the quality of life and air quality are the questions here, and the traffic through the neighborhoods, and this absolute need to change this city from an urban to a suburban environment. And I go back a couple of years here when we got copies. I've got over 500 pages of email traffic. I did an open records request between the ARC, the city employees, and a city councilman whose husband was an attorney for the ARC. We're going to turn that over to the Attorney General's office for a little investigation. But here we have, this is a 2005 zoning issue that has, its ugly head has come back in 2025, where we want to redo the neighborhoods in this urban model that's usually restricted to places like New York, etc. And, the citizens, if you're not representative and you don't have people on the council that are addressing your issues, and I could probably list 50 in Gordon Heights alone. On my street alone, there's 3 triplexes on our street. It's because the city is not doing their job. They're more concerned about this kind of thing than they are about taking care of trash and all the issues that are important to the people in the neighborhood, and more specifically, the quality of their environment. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, not seeing anyone else. All right, sure, if it's for the public hearing, come on up. If it's for the public hearing on the zoning, we'll be able to talk about that in a minute too. No, this is not the public hearing yet. Yeah,
So need to wait until after.
I think did you want to go now, sir? Sure. Okay. All right, we're about to get started. So if you want to stay there, hold on. All right, we're going to close public comment. No one else wants to make a general public comment, and move to new business, which is Z-25-04. I think we actually are going to have a presentation. So Linda, you may want to just have a seat.
Need to wait until after.
Yeah, he's going to have a presentation. Yeah.
Can I do this? Can I do this without feedback? Can you hear me? Okay. We'll see if we can do this without feedback. All right, so this is the second public hearing for a city-initiated rezoning, Z-2504, which is primarily on the Oak Cliff, Winters Chapel, and Shallowford Road corridors. And I apologize in advance. This is the longest presentation on this I'll give. The next time we do this, it'll be much shorter. But this combines some slides specific to this rezoning with the slides that I showed you guys last month, kind of outlining the T4 zoning district. All right, so city-initiated rezoning properties along Oak Cliff Road, Winters Chapel Road, and Shallowford Road from R1 and OI actually to T3 and T4. And then, rezoning properties on Windsor Oak Drive from R1 to T3 as well. So the three areas here, so this is the zoning map of the city. The three areas are highlighted in red. Number one being the Oak Cliff Road and Windsor Oak Drive corridors. Number two being Winters Chapel, and then number three being Shallowford Road. So just some zooming in on the characters of the three different areas. So Oak Cliff Road, we're all pretty familiar with that, very busy road. We've got single family homes on both sides for the majority of the corridor that we're talking about. And then closer to Buford Highway, there are some properties that are used for like places of worship and a salon that are zoned OI as well, or office. Area number two, Winters Chapel. So as you're going north out in Doraville towards Dunwoody and Peachtree Corners, on the left side, we have primarily single family homes. And then on the right side, we have primarily townhomes and multifamily communities, Aspen Woods being one of them. And then on Shallowford Road, so this is going north towards Buford Highway. On the right, we have detached single-family homes. And then on the left, across the street is actually in Chamblee. And some of that is residential, including some higher density residential developments that have gone up in Chamblee. And then some of that is commercially zoned and commercially operated as we get closer to Buford Highway. So the current proposed zoning. So right now, like I said, all these properties are zoned R1 on Oak Cliff Road, and then some of them are zoned OI up closer to Buford Highway. On Oak Cliff Road itself, we're proposing T4 or Transect 4, and then on Windsor Oak from R1 to T3. On Winters Chapel Road, all the subject properties are currently zoned R1. We're proposing T4 for that as well. And then I actually did want to address that about the Chicopee and the Chamblee, or not Chamblee, Chicopee and Homeland. So there are properties. The reason those addresses were included on the signage, so some of the properties are corner lots, and their address is actually on the side street as opposed to Winters Chapel. And then on the bottom of this map here, you can see there are two lots that are currently vacant that are owned by DeKalb County. And then on Shallowford Road, here we have the lots facing Shallowford, and a similar deal. Some of the lots are on the corners of Stafford and Addison on the side streets. Their addresses are facing that instead of Shallowford Road itself. So pulling from the comprehensive plan, so this is our future land use map that's in the comprehensive plan. These are again, the subject areas highlighted on here. This is the page pulled from the comprehensive plan that outlines what this area is for. It's called the Neighborhood Preservation District. It is, as the name would suggest, mostly focused on residential character and residential zoning. Zooming in on what kinds of uses are allowed or contemplated in this zoning or in this district, and then what kind of zoning districts. So you can see I've highlighted everything from single family to small multifamily is contemplated in here, as well as the two zoning districts that we're talking about tonight, and then just some character images pulled from stuff that already exists in Doraville and stuff that exists in some of our neighboring cities as well. All right, so comparing the zoning regulations. So this is one of the slides that I presented to you all last month, just kind of giving an overview of what we're talking about when we're talking about transect zones. So not going to go through the whole spiel again, but we don't have T1 and T2 because we don't have rural or undeveloped land anymore. So it's that was why that was never adopted. So we start at 3, which is the low density residential. And then here's some just kind of aerial examples of what those look like again, and then kind of going into the theory of why we're doing this. So I don't want to spend too long on this, but one of the overarching theories for why you would want to do zoning this way and kind of allow more stuff by right and more intense development by right as you kind of notch up in through the different transects is to avoid artificial separation of uses for long periods of time. Because what tends to happen with that is you have, instead of things gradually increasing in density and increasing in intensity over time as the population grows, the demands and needs of the population grows, instead of having this kind of like incremental thickening up or strengthening of the neighborhood over time, you end up with everything remaining the exact same until the market conditions can no longer bear it. And then you have a sudden and rapid intensification of development, which I think we've seen plenty of examples of that in Doraville and in other places where it's a single family home for decades and decades until suddenly it is something much more intense, and there's you kind of miss that chasm in between that. All right, so talking about the both the current zoning and the proposed zoning. So T3, we've been through this a couple times, is mostly is all residential. The biggest difference between that and R1 is that it allows duplexes instead of just detached single family. T4 is still primarily residential. Most of the stuff that's contemplated that you can build there is residential. It does allow some commercial uses, which we'll go into. This is a comparison of R1 and T3 and then R1 and T4. I won't go all the way through this, but the big takeaway that from this is that R1 and T3 are largely similar in this constraints that are put on what you can build, whether or not you're building a single family home or a duplex. And then T4 is where there are some significant differences, both in terms of the number of housing units you can build, but also things like lot coverage. That was something that was brought up at the Planning Commission, was the difference in lot coverage. And the building height as well, which we'll go into in a little bit later. All right, so building setbacks. So here are some of the lots that are included in the rezoning on Winters Chapel Road. These red and blue lines are the setbacks that are outlined in the zoning table for T4. So the red is the minimum and the blue is the maximum. So when you're building, if you were building a theoretical building on any of these lots in the T4 zoning district, the front of your building would have to start somewhere between those two lines. And similar to the corner of Addison and Shallowford Road, if you're putting a building on the corner, it would need to start somewhere between those two lines. And we've talked about this before too, but one of the biggest difference between this and the previous zone or the proposed zoning and the current zoning is the orientation of how you do where the building is versus where the parking is. So the building should be fronting the street as opposed to the parking. All right, so required buffers. So when you have if these properties were to be rezoned to T4 and somebody was to build, redevelop one or multiple or whatever into something that is now or what allowed in the T4 zoning that was not previously allowed in R1. So say they were to build a multifamily building, the code would require a minimum of a 20-foot planted buffer between from the property line that's abutting single family residential or R1 zoning. So on here, that's represented by the dark green bar. If they were to build a mixed use building, so something that had an office on the floor or something that had a commercial use on the ground floor, that would require a minimum of a 40-foot planted buffer, which is represented here by the light green bar. So Winters Chapel, similar on Addison and Shallowford, this is what that looks like. So if you can see, if somebody was to somehow take up these two lots or redevelop these two lots on the corner here, if they were rezoned and they wanted to put a commercial or a mixed use building on the corner here, that green bar, light green bar, is how close that the closest that building would be able to get to the property line. All right, so building height. So right now in R1, you're allowed to build up to 35 feet, which is approximately 3 stories. Same thing in T3. In T4, you're allowed 4 stories. T5, which is what most of Buford Highway, New Peachtree Road, where we are right now, further up Peachtree Boulevard, places like that are zoned for T5. You're allowed up to 6 stories by right. And then T6, you're allowed up to 20 stories by right. Nobody has ever taken us up on that, but that is all the zoning that's around the MARTA station between Central and 285 and Buford Highway, and the old Kmart property that maybe someday will hold Lotus Grove. All right, so the height limiting plane. So this is one of the hardest things to explain. We've tried to do our best with these graphics. So if you're looking at this diagram, starting from the left, you have your single family house. You have your lot line and that little tick on the bottom. You have your planted buffer represented here by the cartoon tree. And then you have, starting at 35 feet, you have an imaginary 45-degree angle that dictates how high the building in the adjacent property can be. So you can't get closer than 35 feet, or you can't get higher than 35 feet starting at the planted buffer. And then here's like kind of a better representation of what that looks like. So as you get closer to the property line, the building has to step down. And what that looks like, you leave that up to whoever's building. It can be a shorter building, it can be an angle, just, however that looks. So here's an approximation. So looking at those buffers again, so if somebody was to build a multifamily building, this is about the point at which that building could reach 4 stories in relation to the property line. And then if they built a mixed use building that had a commercial component, this is about how far close they could get. So you'll see of the 2 lots that are included in this rezoning here, they wouldn't actually be able to even get up to 4 stories on the lot that's adjacent to the rest of the single family homes. All right, and comparing the uses here, so R1 and T3, there's not much difference. Like I've said, the biggest difference is now you can build a duplex by right instead of just a single family home. There's a lot more difference between R1 and T4. So you'll see that all of the kind of intensifying residential uses are allowed in T4, as well as the commercial uses that are more or less allowed in R1 as well, your home occupations, daycare, place of worship, things like that. And then also your commercial properties, which we'll go into now. So what the code says is when you have a retail use, so we've thrown out coffee shops. I think somebody had, maybe Councilmember Armstead said ice cream, whatever, just something like that. If you have a commercial retail use in this zoning, it is only allowed to be on the ground floor of a building, and it is only allowed to be on the corner of a block. So in this instance, we have the corner here of Addison and Shallowford Road again. So the green checks are where a retail space would be allowed to go. Red X's, no. And then the question mark is because of that unbuilt right-of-way right there that you see the gap between the properties. Similarly on Oak Cliff Road, Windsor Oak Drive. So green represents where you could put a retail space, X is no. And then this is trying to visualize what this, so in this scenario, you have this block where the corner and the main road is zone T4, and then the stuff further back to the right is still zoned R1. So here's where you would be allowed to put what? So you would be allowed to put the commercial retail space only on the ground floor and only on the corner lot, represented here by this tallest building. You could put office on the ground floor in the other buildings, but not a retail or a service-based. And then residential could go on any of these floors really, but if somebody is mixing these uses like that, residential on the top floor. All right, so here's the schedule. So we are here at the second public hearing in July. The Planning Commission heard this, more or less this presentation a couple weeks ago. The next time this will come up per the state law will be in October when it will come back before the Planning Commission. That's all I have.
Great, thank you very much. I think we're going to jump to the public hearing, but really quickly, Austin, I think the rationale that we had talked about before when the council talked to you about this is just for the benefit of the people who are here, not that they necessarily will agree with it or not. But a lot of these properties are in very challenged locations for R1 zoning. Like I just think of the houses on Shallowford Road, which are directly across from very intense commercial uses in Chamblee. We can't affect what happens in Chamblee, and what happens is it holds back something happening to any of those houses because no one's going to invest in them as a single family house. So they've kind of deteriorated over the 20 years that I've been here. I think that was the idea. Obviously, each corridor is a little bit different and in the challenges they're facing, but is that kind of the thought?
Yeah, more or less. I mean, I think the important thing to reiterate in this process is just because the property is being upzoned does not compel anybody to do anything, but it is trying to recognize that sometimes when you have a very low density use on a very busy road,
No one's gonna
there's a
invest.
mismatch between the environment and what you're allowed to build. So even though this is not making anybody do anything, it would provide somebody who maybe owns one of those houses or lives in one of those houses the opportunity to do more with their property that might make it worthwhile. So.
All right. We're going to open up the public hearing. We'll actually start with anyone wishing to speak in favor of the zoning item. We'll have up to 10 minutes to speak. We'll give everyone 3 minutes to start. And then if there's still time left, you're welcome to use up the rest of the time. I'm not seeing anyone come up, and I'm not seeing. This is in favor. You want to speak in favor of it? Yeah. This is in favor. There's no one on Zoom, right? Okay. All right, we're going to close that part of the public hearing and open it up to anyone wishing to speak against. You may come up and state your name. We'll give everyone 3 minutes. This is anyone wishing to speak against the item. Please come up and state your name and where you live. You can have up to 3 minutes to speak.
All you guys been to my house. You know who I am, Ron Aspen Woods. Okay? I am totally against what you guys are doing because you are proving that you all cannot handle the job. And that's why we're going to terminate you. And I hope that everyone in here join band with me and get rid of these guys. We are not for that proposal, that rezoning. We're not. We don't like it. We don't like what you're doing now. So you're incompetent. We don't want that. We don't want you. We want a whole new step. If you want to turn in your badges, you can. We do not want that. You understand that? We do not want that. We are totally against it. We are totally against you. We don't like you no more. So please forget the zoning. Forget the zoning and leave us alone. Pack your bags and go. We don't want you. From the bottom of my heart. Because we have been fighting with you guys for 20 years. You lie, you connive, and you do things in the dark. And then you try to make up and try to justify what you have done. You have called us an apartment complex, a private street, and all these other things. And it's not right. It is not right. And how could you all sit there and you guys live here? And I know who you're taking your cues from, Chris, the city manager. You all listen, he works for you guys. You guys work for us. And we telling you, we do not want that zoning. Rezoning, we don't want it. Forget it. And you can leave. You're dismissed.
All right, let's not applaud after everyone. Please come up.
Thank you.
Pull the microphone down. Thanks.
My name is Linda Lee, and I'm a 41-year resident of Doraville. I am against the rezoning of properties along Winters Chapel Road that would allow duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, multifamily buildings up to 4 stories high, and some commercial uses. I do not want this urbanization of Winters Chapel Road area. We don't need, and I don't want, more traffic, a denser population, more traffic, demolition and construction, more traffic, more school buses holding up traffic in both directions, nor any commercial uses in this area. I want to preserve our neighborhoods. I don't want this growth, disruption, and urbanization. I cannot think of any advantages this would bring to my neighbors and me as nearby residents. So again, we don't need and I don't want this urbanization. I am against the proposed rezoning along Winters Chapel Road. We don't want it.
Next. No clapping, please. Come on.
Susan Crawford, Oak Cliff. I have 3 minutes, right? Okay, I'm just going to read. What you first presented, or what I was shown by one of you, looked really nice. You know, it was like the rendering, but that's not really what this zoning is for. This is a zoning for apartment complexes on, at least in Oak, and I won't speak for the others because I'm not that familiar with the other 2 areas involved, but on Oak Cliff, there are already people living in their houses. They're trying to reinvent Oak Cliff Road. They're trying to fix it up. And they got a raw deal because it used to be just a little street in a neighborhood until it was connected to Winters Chapel and became cut through. So they're doing their best, and it's looking pretty nice. And when you say nobody's going to be forced to do anything, that's not really true, because zoning is a tricky thing. Say a developer manages to buy 2 pieces of property next to each other, or 3, and that's all. You know, it seems very harmless. They put in a large apartment complex, more traffic, more people, more height, more just chaos. The neighbors on either side are going to move. That opens up their properties for, you know, the more apartments. So pretty soon that whole strip is apartments or disgruntled homeowners. Then what happens to the people behind them, which would be me, then we are rezoned also? Or how is that the intent, to turn that whole area into apartments? I have no idea, but that might be the unintended consequence. Traffic is already a nightmare there. I don't see how you can do this without adding to that nightmare. Pollution is bad, really bad, especially the air pollution, which has been linked to heart disease, lung disease, learning disabilities in children, Alzheimer's in older adults. There's a school right there. Is this going to impact the children walking to and from school? Because they do. And other kinds of pollution. There's light pollution. There's noise pollution. Parking. Where are they going to park? They're not going to park in the front. And buffers, that sounds great, but there's not all that much room. You're going to have to cut down the trees, which is our only buffer against some of this air pollution from all sides that we have now. So where are you going to put the parking? In our yard? Because that's what's there. That's what's behind these buildings, is our backyard. Okay, I'm also worried about cut-through traffic. Basically, we should not have to fight you. We elected you to fight for us. Thank you.
Someone.
Hi, my name's Brian Zazak. I guess I'm the young one here because I recently moved on Redwood Street. I was at Dunwoody Village. I left Dunwoody Village because the nature of Dunwoody Village was apartments, lots of young professionals. They have a different priority than seniors, than people with families. Not necessarily bad. They're just different. They're younger. They're more into their lives at that time. Nothing wrong with that. Changing this to mixed use And I'm speaking specifically about Winters Chapel, Chicopee, and Homeland. The other areas I don't know about, so I can't comment on that. I don't know it as well, but this is a single family neighborhood. They're all single family homes. None of the homes there are multi-family homes. They're all single. Changing Doraville into Chamblee is not a good idea. Chamblee it has its nice points, but it also is for a single family home for people with kids and seniors. It's not easily accessible. It's not easy to get around. It can be quite the pain sometimes. Being that this neighborhood is single family, lots of kids, lots of seniors, to change the dynamic of that street to bring in more traffic, which I was surprised at how much traffic. I love the neighborhood because it's so quiet and nice, but we're seeing a steady flow of more and more and more traffic that comes through the neighborhood, comes into Winters Chapel. My God, if something happens on 285, look out, because our neighborhood's filled with cars because they can't go on 285, so they start bypassing. Putting businesses there or multifamily homes there, it's just going to bring more blight, more traffic. Maybe not blight, that's not a good word, but it's going to bring more busyness. That is not really what that neighborhood's about. That neighborhood, people love to walk their dogs there. It's really quiet. You know, there's kids playing, they ride the bikes down the street. It's very different than a business complex or a business road, say Buford Highway or something like that. I don't see any issue with it on Buford Highway. Even in the section that's down the road that had used to have I guess it was a university, like a Christian university, all those buildings over there, just slightly up Winters Chapel. That's more business. There's already businesses there. Don't see any problem with that being changed, but I definitely see an issue with single family homes being changed. And you know that.
Thank you, sir. That was 3 minutes.
I'm sorry.
That was 3 minutes.
Oh, all right. Thank you.
You can go.
Oh, are you ready to go? Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Callie Householder. I've lived on Addison Drive in Doraville for 23 years. My family lives there. Just wanted to say I'm not going to terminate anybody. And I find it odd that Addison isn't mentioned in this zoning, even though it's within the zoning, because I think originally it was mentioned. So I don't know why it's not up there anymore. And I don't know where all my Addison people are. They usually would be here. So I guess I'm the sole representative. But I oppose the zoning. It's a residential. I don't think it's a great thing for Addison Drive. We already have enough traffic problems, as you all know, on Addison. So I just wanted to note that I oppose this. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm Mary Ackerman. I live on Green Oak Drive. My backyard abuts a house that is in the zoning area. I am concerned about a lot of things with regard to this. And one of them is it says no one will have to sell their house and they'll just do it piecemeal. So there's no plan for Oak Cliff and the traffic. There's no plan for Oak Cliff and the construction that would disrupt it over and over again if these things were done one at a time, kind of, or 2 lots at a time. There's no plan for creating a homogeneous development plan for that, or is there kind of a plan that, oh, well, we're ultimately going to have to make Oak Cliff 3 lanes or 4 lanes, or and I've been here since 1990. I remember when they put all those weird curbs and medians on Oak Cliff and we were told it cost $1 million and my hair stood on end. People think of weird stuff to do to my neighborhood. But I don't want it behind my house. And I particularly don't want a 4-story building with a daycare under it. Now, I'm not on a corner, so maybe that would just be on the corner, but it changes the or a foot massage, even if it's really therapeutic, or anything else that they might want to put there. That might be a wonderful business, but I don't want it behind my house. And I feel like my property value is something I'm deeply invested in. I see the wave of building that has happened all up in Buckhead, up through Chamblee. The wave is coming to us. They're going to put millions of units at the Kmart and at the GM plant. When is that going to happen? Let them put all those units there. And then if we still need more units after our president gets through throwing hundreds of thousands of our residents out of the country, we've lost residents. I'm just saying, not getting political here, but what is the need for way more? What is the actual need for way more? I'm assuming that any property that gets developed is going to maximize. It won't be, well, they could do 2 or 3 or 4 or 6. They're going to do 6 if they can do 6. They're going to do 3 stories if they can do 3 stories. So we have to assume that it's going to be the maximum every time. It will be unusual if it isn't. You hear my concerns. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bob Vogt. I next month will begin my 27th year at 3430 Pin Oak Circle. I moved there after getting married for the first time, having a house, and it's been my home since. It is such a nice neighborhood. And one of the things that made me feel, and my wife at the time feel, is that it was already a diverse neighborhood. People like to talk about, gosh, we needed to diversify. Well, this has happened apparently on its own, and the neighborhood has remained a wonderful place to go out and take a walk. And that's all really, I think, any of us care about. I mean, walk out the front door and take a walk. And then actually, yeah, well, we want to get in our car and drive somewhere. And that's another thing. And this group, whatever, I don't know, but yeah, $1 million to put that road in. And I heard recently $1 million to get rid of it. So if you don't learn your lesson the first time, that's understandable. If you don't learn it the second time, that's ridiculous. Things like that. One other thing, and this may be over the top philosophically or whatever, but the world is changing meteorologically, I should use words that I can say, but we are going to need all the capacity for drainage and water handling and so on. We don't know what we're going to need. And what happened in Texas within the last month is going to begin happening in other places where it maybe happened very rarely or was probably going to happen someday, but not tomorrow. And then it's tomorrow. And we need to be having our city council find ways to protect the current one-family residencies in the Oak Cliff area. That's what we want. That'll be hard enough. If you want to do something hard, make sure we don't get flooded out or lose lives.
Next.
My name is Tom Daso. I live in Aspen Woods. I assume that all of you are residents of the Doraville area here. I work downtown, okay? And I see the downtown. I don't know who works downtown and gets to see, but I take, the train is the most convenient thing to take. Okay. I take the train as often as possible. I see people riding outside the train, homeless, just hanging right as I step out of the business. I see people sleeping wherever they can. I see excrement on the street, Hopefully the people that all would be moving here into all these complexes that you would be building would be people of good character, but not all of them. It only takes one or two. But you got to consider something. If you're voting for this, then you got to consider the crime that you're going to be bringing with all this, not only to us, but to you as well.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, Richard Ballantyne. I'm in Winners Chapel Hills. We moved here 25 years ago because we had a quiet neighborhood. It was a safe neighborhood, and we didn't have to deal with excess traffic. I heard about the rezoning, and we're in the process of improving our home. We made a decision to stay in Doraville. We were going to move, if we hadn't improved our house, or we're going to stay and improve our house. We've started to improve our house. And I'm real upset that you're messing with the character of our neighborhood. There's a reason people live in our neighborhoods, because it's quiet, because there's not excess traffic, because they don't have rentals to deal with. Right now, we have single-family homes with probably 12, 14 people living in them because they're treated as rentals. Those houses have 8 cars. That's a single-family home. If you have triplexes, quadruplexes, you're going to have more cars, more traffic. Where are they going to park? There isn't a solution for that. You talk about a buffer on the back of your property of 20 feet. 20 feet is nothing. If there's a 4-story building, you have a 20-foot buffer with a single-family home behind it. That building towers over them. I don't care what you put there. It's not a buffer. It sounds nice, but it's not. It really ruins the character of the neighborhood. The maintenance can really be a problem, say with quadruplexes or, duplexes. Rentals do not maintain their property like single family people do. I'm also a little concerned, or a lot concerned, about property values being reduced. Our property values have gone up really nicely, but I don't want these multifamily complexes, basically ruining the value of my property. We look at our homes as investments. We don't want to see the value go down. We want to see it go up. And in this market, the real estate values have gone up. So anything that's going to affect the value of my property affects me directly, affects all of you. So you really need to think about those things. You're messing with the neighborhoods, and you say, oh, this is good. We're, dealing with the times. Yeah, well, people living in single family homes, are dealing with the times too, and we want to maintain the character of our neighborhoods. So I think you really need to thoughtfully reconsider rezoning. Thanks.
Excuse me, Ben Crawford, Oak Cliff Estates, Mayor, City Council, good evening. And also City Council person if you're on Zoom. To my friends and neighbors, and also the council members are also neighbors of ours. But they're also elected officials in the city and determine things that affect all of us. There's a history of this community, not just Oak Cliff Estates, but also Northwoods and I believe Tilly Mill also, where cousins came in and they built some of the first triplexes in the United States. They built a country club that was free to all the residents over in Oak Cliff Estates. The city had an opportunity to buy that for next to nothing to increase the quality of life for the people in Oak Cliff. And it was mentioned to council and nothing was done. So I guess the whole thing here is a lot of residents are looking at what's around us right now, like the actual Kmart property that sits with weeds growing right now and nothing's happening there. And we're looking at the fact that tanker trucks are coming down our street and buses from the bus depots on Oak Cliff Road are coming down our street. Nothing stopping them from coming down. One day I saw 2 tanker trucks, a fuel truck for aircraft fuel, and then followed by a bus. This was all in the space of 2.5 hours. Nothing ever gets done. Maybe they're all getting ticketed. I don't have the slightest idea. I guess I'd have to do an open records request. But the thing is, this seems to us to be some arbitrary zoning that's being done where residents is going to have a major impact on us. You know, we've been here a while. A lot of us know each other. We're friends and neighbors. And there's going to be such a huge impact on the quality of life for all of us. As other people mentioned about pollution and about global warming and about, you know, other things, political climate. This to us is about the value of our lives. And it's up to council to respect that value and respect our opinions. There's a lot of hardworking, working class people in the neighborhood that work hard all day. We were those people when we were younger. There's professionals in our neighborhoods. There's authors, artists, musicians, people that own small businesses. They're all being affected by this. I haven't found one person that's for this. One person, not one. And I don't understand why the city wants to move ahead with this. And I think you should rethink it. Thank you for your time. And one thing is you should help our neighborhoods prosper. It's a community. Help it grow. It should remain all R1 zoning. This is an oasis for families and people that want to invest in the future. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Tim Snyder from Northwoods. Chris, you're kind of getting into my area over here, I think.
That's one earlier.
I'll represent the Northwoods folks. 3 of you are my neighbors. Northwoods has a historic designation. I don't know if people know that. And the mayor and a bunch of other people worked really hard to get that designation. The area that we're talking about, that Sheldon talked about, Shallowford Road, there are little houses there. When Northwoods was first built, that was the style of house that they built, was more of the cottage style, and they don't look particularly nice. However, that doesn't mean that they couldn't look nice. I have said for years that we need to hold these property owners accountable when they're in violation. These properties don't look good, and in my opinion, not enough is being done to make them look good. They're cute little houses. They all have pretty big backyards back there. That said, I'm not really sure who asked for this or why we're doing it. It does seem like there's an urbanist on the staff somewhere who really wants to change the dynamics of Doraville. I have said many times that I think that our neighborhoods are the most valuable asset that we have in Doraville. They're all unique, and I didn't want to leave out Aspen Woods or your community, but in general, I was usually thinking of Tilly Mill and Oak Cliff and Northwoods as kind of the big 3, and they're architecturally different and diverse, and I think really great housing. And I feel like we're being vilified because we want to live in an R1 single family neighborhood. And it does feel that way sometimes when a past council member told me once, well, Mr. Snyder, 4 people could live on your property, just all that land going to waste. And I thought, well, yeah, but I chose to live here, and maybe that person chose to live in an apartment or a townhome or something like that. You chose to live like that. That was your style, what you wanted. I chose to live in an R1 neighborhood, and I'm really proud to live in a neighborhood that has a historic designation that we're proud of. The architect who built it, and it was very famous. Chris will tell you a lot about that. There is a great vibe there that I really fear that if, in our case, if we went down Shallowford Road and we put say a developer wanted to buy all the houses and he could theoretically put up 4-story apartment buildings. I actually thought about you, Joseph, and I'll just be quick, but if it were a 4-story building, the second and third and fourth stories would be looking right into your living room.
I'm very aware of where the location is.
And
Thank you.
you'd have to plant a 100-year-old oak tree in order to actually screen.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
You only used a minute and a half. first.
No, you didn't use your time. You're fine.
Okay, I won't worry about it. It's been said by many, just go out there on Winters Chapel Road anytime from 3 o'clock to 7 o'clock and try to get anywhere. You just can't do it now. It's going to get worse, especially during the construction, which of course will last over 3 to 5 years. And I've lived in Doraville, by the way, since 1970. I've lived there since most of you have been alive. I'm worried about my friends who are young, who are going to be there later on. On Winters Chapel Road, when you start to put in a 4-story building there and you back it up to that drainage ditch, there's going to be issues. There's going to be drainage issues. You may end up having to deal with it, with the government to get. I used to be an engineer longer. You have troubles. I can see it coming now. Well, we want to put this in there, but the ditch is there and the drainage is there. We need a little bit more space. And as soon as you let one person have a little more space, it's going to explode. And you know it'll happen. It's going to happen. And heaven help us, I want to see somebody put something down at Chicopee and Winters Chapel Road and put something in that hole. It's not going. The reason that hole is there is when they put the new road through, there's nothing you could do with it. So it was just abandoned and given to the county. I worry about my friends in the future. I plan to be dead before all this gets to be a big deal. I'm pretty sure of it, but thank you.
And just so everyone knows, he didn't go twice. He spoke during public comment and the public hearing. So you didn't use twice. You didn't use 2 times. You're good. Yeah. Anyone else wishing to make public comments in here? Because we have some people we have someone over here.
Readdress, just.
We've made it past the 10 minutes. Yeah, we got him.
Name's Ambrose. I live on Redwood Street. I lived there 60 years. I've seen Winters Chapel go from a 2-lane. We got markers now where turn signals, plus y'all have even put curbs up to protect people, which is fine. But I've also seen traffic. You get on that road in the morning from 7 to 9 and you're backed up. In the evening, it's get worse. I've been on it from Buford Highway past Chicopee, backed up. And then you got the apartments over there with turn lanes. People don't like turn lanes and they force their way over. And I've said it and I've seen it. There's wrecks, people forcing their way over. And this is going to cause more of it. And I know for a fact, 15 years ago, they tried to put a 2-story building up and it was turned down flat. And I think a 4-story, that's ridiculous. In a residential city that is what you say you are, but now you're trying to make it another Chamblee. Please think and turn it down.
Anyone else in the room who hasn't made comment who would like to?
I'm Charles Livingston. I live in the Oak Cliff area. And I agree with most everything that's been said here tonight. But I think there's one aspect that maybe has been overlooked a little bit. My first question when I heard about this was, why are you doing this and who's behind it? And what little information I've been able to get so far says that Stephanie Coontz has a lot to do with it. At his bleeding heart, he wants to help everybody that's coming into the country, and we'll find a home for them. And we're going to say that Dorville is for you. But, you know, this to me raises a question of the quality of people we're going to get in these high rises. You know, it could be illegals and ever misfits from around the country. And what kind of effect are they going to have on children and adults and other people? Nobody's talked about that sort of thing, but I can't imagine that that they're all going to be top of the line people. And how are they going to pay for it? You know, knowing how you guys work, we'll probably have to raise the taxes and we'll be paying for it. But I think you need to think about the quality of people that are going to be moving into these places and what kind of effect they might have on the community, the community. And I don't see anything good about it. That's all.
All right, thank you. Anyone else in the chamber that wishes to make a comment? I think we have a few hands raised on Zoom. Start with Leanne. And just unmute and state your name and where you live. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Leanne. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, I live on Oak Cliff and I've lived there since 2017. I moved to Dorville deliberately. I had taught at Hightower for a little while and I just really like this community. I like the diversity. And when I moved here, this is a busy street. Oak Cliff is a busy street, but the minute you walk around the corner, it's very quiet and the street itself feels very safe. Like I feel very safe walking around my neighborhood. So all that to say, I'm conflicted about the intent behind this. I agree with. I do think we need to be able to provide more options for affordable housing. Selfishly, I'm concerned about how that's going to affect my property value and whether I'll be able to sell my house and actually even recoup what I've already put into it if things are not regulated well in terms of how that development transpires. So I have not seen anything in this description about how the city itself is going to determine what kind of developments to allow. Because even though you change zoning, that doesn't mean just like any development comes in, right? They have to be approved. But I don't see anything that says like, well, we're going to limit the number of multifamily housing. We're going to have some kind of rational way that if this does happen, it's going to happen slowly and more naturally over time, kind of like the nice illustration in the presentation appears. But what I'm afraid of is that we're going to just end up with a patchwork that is going to make it less appealing for people to live on this street and that we will see people moving out and the thing just kind of, you know, domino effect. So I would like to see more of you know, some kind of actual plan that has teeth behind it, that can't just be ignored when the next council comes in, that is going to keep the development from, you know, flipping the neighborhood abruptly to something that it currently isn't. And the last thing I'll say is our lots are already pretty small. So I feel like our housing is quite dense already. So we live, you know, around every neighbor. We're practically right on top of each other as it is. So I don't really see that we are, I don't know, wasting the land. We also have a lot of really nice large trees that we would lose. And I think that's a benefit of the neighborhood as well. And it benefits, of course, the environment. So I signed the petition saying that I was concerned about this, and I am concerned about it because I just don't think that it's a fully fleshed out enough plan. And having witnessed the very well-intentioned traffic calming measures out front that had to be removed because the execution ended up being a nightmare, really. I'm concerned that the execution on this is not going to match the beauty of those nice renderings.
Thank you, Leanne. That's 3 minutes. All right, next, Tom Hart. Once you can unmute and state your name and where you live. You have 3 minutes.
Tom Hart from Gordon Heights. Where do you start? This is a mess. This is a perfect example of the government getting in the development business. It's when MARTA got in the development business at Lindbergh Station. It went bankrupt multiple times and turned into a disaster. Government doesn't do a very good job of developing anything, really. And what normally happens, a developer would come to the city, I'm going to take this piece of property, I'm going to do this with it. It goes before the planning commission. People in the neighborhood look at it and they say, yeah, we want that or we don't want that. That's how it normally happens. Here is a case where the city is going to take huge swaths of the city and open it up to whatever comes in the front door, okay, with no control whatsoever what goes here other than it's limited to 4 stories, etc. That's why government does things, and that's why it ultimately turns into a disaster for everybody around it. So, example, in Joseph's neighborhood, Chamblee Tucker Road, if you listen to the engineers that built that road, you would understand how to handle this current problem. When they built the road and widened it to what it is now, it was to allow access, a shortcut from 285 to residents that live in South DeKalb to access the CDC and the IRS buildings. What they made a mistake doing is they cut down these huge neighborhoods, left the houses facing the road wide open, and they've never put any kind of buffer in. For example, on Winters Chapel Road, we have a limited access. You have earthen and tree-lined buffer protecting the neighborhood. That's what DeKalb County said they should have done on Chamblee Tucker Road and Shallowford Road when they built that big expanded road. So the city of Doraville should have bought the houses and put a wall up, like they do in Dunwoody and other neighborhoods all over the city, to buffer the neighborhood from sound and pollution, etc., that's coming off this highly traveled thoroughfare. Same thing goes on Winters Chapel Road. The same thing goes for Oak Cliff Road. You've got a situation there with the traffic. The houses are being subjected to this. You need an additional traffic light at Northern Pin Oak. You need to do something about the neighborhood as far as sidewalks, etc., on that road, and develop it so it aids the people that live in that neighborhood. All this is doing is introducing a cancer into the neighborhood. It's never successful, and there's no limit. They could take all those houses and turn it into massage parlors because that's in the zoning. Just walk in the front door and get a permit. How's that going to affect the house behind them? You don't consider it, and the government needs to get out of the development business.
3 minutes, Tom. Thank you. Next, Ricardo. Once you're able to unmute, state your name, where you live. You can have up to 3 minutes.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Ricardo Nogueira, I live in Allison Drive. Even though I'm not living in the buffer zone, but I'm concerned about this new development because the traffic in Addison Drive is going to affect McClave and our neighborhood, first of all. But most important is, that's, I think, is this meeting, I think, is a good sign for this council because nobody who lives in Doraville came to say anything positive or favor to development. That's the first clue. So as you guys being elected by people, you should represent the people's or the neighborhood wishes. So that is a good clue for you guys to stop immediately this stupid idea. Sorry to use this word, but it is. You don't have a planning. You just put the houses in the map, but think about the details. Traffic was mentioned over there. Who's going to live there? And more important, Doraville doesn't have infrastructure to have more houses. We have a problem with our water system, our sewer system have been breaking quite often. Finally, after they destroy several times the street we live, Allison Drive, finally it seems to repair, but it's still not quite good. So we don't have a structure to have that. And also, what they need for more people, like somebody mentioned, there is no parking. You have those buildings, those apartments. Where are people going to park? Traffic. That should be a more important thing. So I request this council to rethinking what's your function as a council man. Do you represent the people or you do whatever you want? That's my guess. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I think we have Abdul. State your name and where you live, and you can have up to 3 minutes. You have to unmute. Abdul. Mr. Ajwa. And give him a few more seconds. Mr. Ajwa, we can't hear you. He unraised his hand. All right. Does anyone else in the room who hasn't spoken want to speak? Please come up. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Amy Hirschberg, and I live in Aspen Woods, and I'm a little late to this party. My neighbors in the last couple of days have told me about this meeting. I missed the first one. And my question after listening to everybody for the last hour is, on the paper, it says it's a city-initiated zoning change. Is that correct? City-initiated rezoning. Is there anyone besides you guys that want this? Doesn't seem like there's one person in the entire city of Doraville except you guys that want this. So my question is, why are we even here discussing this? Nobody wants this. There's not one person who stood up in favor of this. So that's just my question. If someone has an answer, I'd like an answer. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Right. All right, we're going to close the public hearing and see if council has any comments. Again, so you can see on the screen, this is going to come back to the Planning Commission October 1st. So Councilmember Henshaw, do you have anything?
Yeah, just so you know, I look down a lot, but it's only because I'm taking notes. So I wrote down names, I write down everybody's concerns. A lot of you don't know me. I'm an architect. I design single-family, multifamily housing for a living. I've been doing it for 25 years. And I look at the list of concerns and I look at the zoning that we are proposing as a city, and all of the concerns that you all have, if done properly, will be not only addressed, but a lot of times alleviated by our proposed zoning. That is
no. This is
rather
not,
rude.
this is not a back and forth. So the council member has the floor.
It's what I do for a living. Now, I know the word apartment building was thrown around a lot. None of these lots that I know of that when I looked at it could support what you would consider a Chambly apartment building. There's no room to park the cars. We can't force neighbors to, backyards to become parking lots. That can't happen. You've got a 20-foot buffer for a 3-story, a 40-foot buffer for a 4-story. Most of these lots, while you can zone it T4, there is no way to actually put an apartment building on them. It's physically impossible to do. I know because I try to do it all the time for my clients, and I'm constantly telling them. And somebody made a comment that yes, developers are going to try to put the biggest thing they can on here within the constraints of what the zoning allows for. So again, please, I'll go back and I'll look at every single lot if you guys want me to, and even a combination of every single lot. But there's no room on any of these lots for a parking deck. There's no room on any of these lots for structured parking of any kind. That automatically eliminates the traditional, what you would consider Chambly apartment building from being built on any of these lots. There were a lot of things that a lot of the negatives that came, negative comments, or maybe we'll start with the positives. The walkability of the neighborhoods, the quiet of the neighborhoods, protecting the neighborhoods. The lots that are being proposed are about 10% or less of the current R1 zoning. They are only along 3 roads. And the idea behind these, at least my understanding of the idea behind this, was that the new buildings should they be built like a row of townhomes. If a row of townhomes would be built, they would be pushed towards the front of the road. And I'll take Winter Chapel, for example. So the townhomes would be built within 20 feet of the roadway. There would be a new sidewalk that the developer would be forced to put in. The developer would be required to put in new stormwater infrastructure, alleviating potential flooding issues. They'd be required to put in new supply lines for water, new waste lines for sewage. The buildings would probably wind up, townhomes are typically 3 stories or maybe a 4-story with a drive under. You come in the back, you would remove a number of curb cuts, reducing traffic issues, because you'd have a lot less driveways of people when you've got 20 people living in a single family home, all going in and out of a driveway versus one driveway for 10 or 15 or 20 units. So you've got added sidewalks. Developers can be requested to put in crosswalks to alleviate potential issues with children crossing to schools. Those 3 or 4-story buildings act as noise buffers, light buffers, pollution buffers for the neighborhoods. So those buildings themselves become the walls that Mr. Hart talked about. And now I rarely agree with Mr. Hart, but he's right. A buffer would be ideal. Now, I believe he's suggesting tearing down all of those houses and just building a wall. That seems counterintuitive when we can do it with a housing stock. I have heard all of your issues, and I believe that most of them are very valid concerns. So please don't think I'm dismissing your concerns. When we hired the developer that we partnered with for our downtown redevelopment recently, we interviewed a number of developers, and quite a few of the developers said, we're going to come in and we're going to bulldoze everything. We're going to build $1 million single family homes here because the grade is too challenging and we can't think of anything else to do with it. And we wound up partnering with the developer who said, we see an opportunity that the difficulties the topography present to create a product that will be unique to the area and to utilize the difficulties to our advantage. And that's the developer we chose to partner with. These sites are not ideal. No big developer is going to come in and try to build a giant apartment building on these sites. It's an impossibility. It can't happen. I'm going to take my time and I'm going to look at what we can do to further refine our proposal to see what sort of the actual, in reality, maximum size buildings are. What the, in reality, could actually be built on these, given our 40-foot setbacks or 20-foot buffers, given the height requirements. So all of the pictures that Austin showed, those are, a lot of it is new urbanism, or, there's a number of terms for it. But when applied appropriately and carefully, they can act as protectors for R1 neighborhoods. I'm just about done. And again, I'm listening to all your concerns, but and I don't know if you guys know this, but about 2 years ago, the city of Decatur rezoned all R1 properties to allow for up to quadplexes. Okay, so every single R1 home in Decatur can be torn down and rebuilt with a quadplex. And somebody asked about, we want to maintain our property values. And I pulled up just one home. I just completely randomly selected one off the map off of Zillow. And it's a single family home. It's about 3,000 square feet. And it's a ranch home, single story that's been expanded on. They have a little bit larger lots there. Its current asking price is $1.475 million. And that's zoned for it to be torn down, potentially torn down and turned into a quadplex. 3 years ago, it was valued at approximately $1.1 million. So it's gone up by almost 4 million, but 30% increase in property values, even though it could theoretically be torn down and turned into a quadplex. So these moves don't necessarily devalue properties if done well. In fact, Decatur rezoned every property and the property values have only gone up. I've lived in Northwoods for 12 or 14 years now. Liked it so much that I wound up building a new home in Northwoods. It's my forever home. My wife will murder me if I ever suggest that we move. My goal being up here is I'm a neighbor, and I want to protect our R1 neighborhoods. I'm not a big fan of what Decatur wound up doing, but it's so far, hasn't negatively affected any parts of the city. And it's only actually seems to have brought up Decatur even further. Their properties are worth more money. People want to live there even more than they used to. That's not to say that's what happened in Doraville, but that's what happened in Decatur. So please don't think that we don't listen. We absolutely do. We hear your concerns, and we up here will take the time and the care to listen and make sure that if we move forward with a zoning change like this, that it will serve to only protect what's the remainder, which is the other 92% of the R1 neighborhoods, so that you have better stormwater, better sewers, less noise pollution, less light pollution, less actual pollution, better walkability, improved sidewalks, improved crosswalks, improve traffic lights, improve vehicular flow. By the way, Waze, I think, is by far the biggest issue that has contributed to traffic. Once GPS wound up in every car, as soon as there's an accident, the roads just get jammed. I know, I live right off Chestnut. It happens all the time. As soon as you see something happen on the highway, our neighborhoods get flooded. There's not much we as a council for Doraville can do about that. I wish we could, but that's neither here nor there. So please reach out to me. You have my email, you have my phone number. Again, this is what I do for a living every single day. And I wouldn't ever want to see something put in here that would harm our neighborhoods. I really wouldn't. It's not my goal. And I don't think it's anybody's goal up here to do that either. We live here, we interact with you guys on a regular basis. So I'll get off my pulpit now, but I do listen. I do write down names. I do pay attention, and we all do. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ray.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I think first I want to start and just say thank you to everyone who's here. I'm really happy I live in a place with neighbors who care about the community. I also have 4 or 5 pages of notes here with a lot of concerns I'm going to go back and study and address. I don't want to repeat everything that Councilmember Henshaw said, so I did have a list of a few things that I wanted to bring up. Some of it is going to contradict what was said from the residents. Last week, I asked everyone to come with an open mind. I want to share why I'm in favor of this, but also encourage you to reach out to me. Obviously, this setting is not the best for a open dialogue back and forth to talk about concerns. So I have a few cards on the table over there. My contact info is on the website as well. Please reach out. I'll meet for coffee. I'll meet on the phone, meet wherever at your house to talk through this. So yeah, I'll run through this and I'll try to be brief. I do have sources for all of these as well. So if anybody is curious, please reach out. I'm happy to share all of these studies, articles, and so on. T4 zoning actually helps create a smooth transition between R1 neighborhoods and more intense urban areas that have those large multifamily complexes that people are worried about. This actually helps preserve the neighborhood character and allows single-family homes to prosper as we transition from single family up to very large multifamily. T4 zoning improves housing diversity, which supports missing middle housing, which I believe one of the commenters talked about. America is facing a housing crisis on a large scale, and by allowing for a diversity of housing in various areas of our great city, we can meet the needs of not only those who can afford single family homes, but also those who prefer duplexes or triplexes or townhomes. Let's see, moving through, that's repetitive. Okay, so adding the option of a small scale commercial operation near a neighborhood, 1 per block, does allow residents have more of their daily needs met within a walkable distance of their homes. This reduces driving, increases pedestrian safety, lowers carbon footprints, and improves individual health. It can also counterintuitively reduce congestion in an area because residents are able to walk where they need to get to rather than drive. This type of zoning has also been shown to improve fiscal performance of cities by increasing tax revenue per acre, increasing surrounding property values up to 3.5 times, and reducing the cost of infrastructure and emergency services. Some studies show a reduce in infrastructure or a savings in infrastructure of 38%. And then lastly, I think what I'll say is I think having an opportunity to let the city grow in a slower, more natural human way with things such as coffee shops, corner stores, etc., creates an opportunity for neighbors to get out of their homes, walk the neighborhood, support local business, and ultimately creates a stronger community and bond among neighbors, which is something I think we need. Also, I wanted to add that as we build out T4, like Councilmember Henshaw said, it would allow developers and allow us to require them to upgrade stormwater infrastructure, upgrade sidewalks, and make the neighborhood safer for all. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Simmons.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to reiterate too, thank you for everyone who came out. It's really good to see this many people here, whether you're for or against, and obviously more against than I saw for, and took notes, but thank you for that. You know, it's like doing this up here. If we don't hear from the residents, you know, we don't really know how you guys want to speak. So it's good to hear from you guys, because like most of you said, we are the voice of everyone in our district or the city. So totally understand. Thank you. And when I first heard about this, you know, I did have some, you know, negative thoughts, because that's sort of your first gut reaction until you get educated about it and like sit there and ask the questions, and, you know, they explain some of it to you, you know, and still you can disagree, and I totally understand. And like everyone else says, I got my cards here too. If you want to get one after the meeting, feel free, call me. We can meet up, email me. My info's on the website. All of our info's on the website. But some positives before I have questions for you, Austin. I'm going to address this. Positives I saw about this rezoning is, like, everyone knows the housing market is very expensive. It's very hard to go from coming out of college, renting, to owning a house with the cost of houses right now. It's ridiculous. You can get a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, and it's $400,000 or $500,000. And there's no way you can do that coming out of college, because inflation's gone up. Everyone's income sort of stayed the same for God knows how many years. When you come out of college, it's 30, 40, 50,000. So this rezoning helps give the opportunity for people to make that jump from renting to starting to own, because you got to build your way up. You know, you can't just, nowadays you can't go from renting to owning a house. You sort of have to go from renting to maybe a condo, to maybe a townhome, to a house where you keep getting equity in it. Over time, it comes back, and you build it up and you keep reinvesting, and that helps you. So that's one positive of this. And of course, there's always responses to all that might be a negative and back and forth, but that's one good positive, I think. And then Councilmember Henshaw made a lot of good points that I agree with as well. The density, when you have more density, I always hear a lot from constituents that we don't have a Publix here, we don't have a Whole Foods here, we don't have some of those big name stores, a lot of stores that people like to go to, and we have to travel to Peachtree Corners, to Dunwoody, to Chamblee, or wherever, just to go to these stores. And the reason why is these stores look for density and making sure their numbers work when they go to the certain cities. And we only have 10 to 12,000 people in our city, so it's hard for them to say it's okay to build their store here. So they look elsewhere until our density. And this rezoning to T4 helps incentivize developers maybe to make the area more dense, which will help bring that in. And of course, that's just wishful thinking, but it's the footprint to bring them here. Also, density incentivizes, or density increases your tax base. You have more people in one little area, which helps reduce everyone else's tax burden. So that is another positive of doing this. I think those are just my positives on it. And I hear everyone's negatives, and I understand where you're coming from. But it's really good to ask those questions and talk about it, and hear what Austin has to say and what we've learned up here. So my other questions are for you, Austin, if you want to come up. So in your slideshow, there's a slide there that has R1 and T4, sort of compares them what we went to. The R1 has 1 lot per acre. Let's see, it's towards the beginning.
Keep going. Back.
Let me see. Oh, wait. Yeah, it's page 51 on my point. Yeah, keep going back. There you go. Right there. That one. So number of units per acre. So most acres roughly in Doraville about 1/3 of an acre, correct? I mean, most lots are about 1/3 on average, let's say. I really don't see more. I mean, you have some big ones and all, but it's usually about 1/3 over. So R1, you can get 1 lot per acre. On the T4, it says 12 max per acre. So if roughly it was a third of an acre, you'd have 4 units max on the lot, and it sort of goes like that.
Yeah.
And these units still have to abide by the setbacks and all. It's not like you can have 4 separate houses because you have the setbacks, side, rear, all that.
Whatever you built, you would have to abide by the setbacks. Yeah.
Right, correct. So the lot size determines that, but you can stack.
Correct.
Okay, so you can have like, can you do that like a first floor flat, a second floor flat type deal?
Can.
Okay, you can.
Yes.
I'm just, yeah. Okay. Let's see. My other question is the side setback in T4 says 0 feet, but that's only if it next to our R1 neighborhood, if there is,
Still have the buffer.
there is a buffer, right? I just want to make sure if we bring that point out that there is a buffer and they still have the side setback buffer with the tree buffer and the height buffer, correct?
Correct. So in this
Right, that
instance, the lot that's on the bottom right is facing Addison, and so the side setback technically would be 0, but because of the required buffer, it's either 20 or 40 feet effectively.
Because there's one on Windsor Oak and English Oak too, correct?
Mm.
So they will have the tree buffer, then they'll have the setback, and then they'll have the height setback. Because I think one of those slides on the commercial side, you had roughly 80 feet.
Sorry, I gotta go.
Huh?
Yeah, I can.
No, that's fine. Yeah, that one right there. It's about 80 feet between their lot line and then the first part that can go above 35 feet on the commercial side, correct? That red arrow?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then my other question is this impervious coverage. I know we always talk about impervious coverage. When you go back to that first slide I had, you have 70% can be impervious surface in T4.
There you go. Correct.
Okay.
So that's inclusive of building,
Driveway.
parking, accessory structures, sidewalk, whatever.
Okay.
So
Because I know we always talk about, that impervious coverage on most of our R1 stuff, and that's just so close to R1. I guess there's no variance or buffer on that since it's under the T4 zone on those lots along Oak Cliff and Winters Chapel, correct? Yeah.
Could you repeat the question?
I said it's so under the T4, they can have 70% impervious coverage on that lot.
Correct. I mean, then that's assuming that you have 70% of the lot to work with.
Right. Okay.
Impervious coverage is anything that does not allow rainwater to seep through. So
It's
it's
like
structures,
concrete,
driveway,
asphalt,
parking. Yeah.
concrete, just not dirt, gravel, grass, stuff that can filter water. And then on this, so I heard about trees and taking out trees and developers and all the ugly things with developers always taking out trees. They have to put trees back per our ordinance or there's money in a tree bank, correct? It's not they can wipe out the trees.
There's a lot of crosstalk. So if you're having a conversation, can you move out of the chambers, please?
That still applies on these lots, correct?
Correct. And there's also, I didn't go into the details about what constitutes a buffer. So the order of preference for what goes into the vegetated buffers that we're talking about is preserving existing specimen trees.
Okay.
And then replanting to provide, because there's guidelines for like screening and stuff like that and the kinds of stuff that you can plant. And then we also have permitted and prohibited species. So that's part of it.
Nice. Okay. No, that's good. That's good. At least we keep what's there first and then go from there. On the Windsor Oak, that whole street was getting rezoned. I just want to clarify the reason we're doing that is because that's really the buffer between that what was it, T5 or?
Correct. Yeah.
The T5.
The properties that are abutting Beaufort Highway are zone T5, and we rezoned the half of the street that is built as duplexes
Right.
to B3 last year, and
I
so
remember.
this is the other half of the street.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, just so everyone's clear, that's the only reason that whole street is sort of getting rezoned compared to Oak Cliff and Winters Chapel.
Correct.
And I guess last is just want to reiterate that the rezoning does help create that buffer to the R1 neighborhood that helps, it's so tough on Oak Cliff and Winters Chapel. And I think Councilmember Henshaw made one of the one great point, well, a lot of great points, but one of the ones I like is the reduction of curb cuts. You know, if you go through there and you have each house has a curb cut, that's X amount of cars coming out at one time to slow down traffic. And if you cut that off and have them come out at one way, that helps with the flow of traffic. So I think that is another good positive point of this rezoning, and if it does go through. But I definitely hear everyone, and thank you. That's all.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Armistead?
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. I don't want to reiterate again. The farther you go down the line, the more you have heard good points from everybody. I'm putting my cards up here too if anybody needs them. So I guess I will start with a story, which is when I came with my realtor to look at my house in Northwoods in 2017. My husband was working, so I called him and I said, I just found this amazing neighborhood, hidden gem neighborhood, and we can walk to get tacos and banh mi, and we can walk to Sweet Hut. And that was pretty much all I had to say to get him on board to buy the house. So I feel very lucky to already live within walking distance of neighborhood-focused businesses. I think that's a huge selling point. I am the envy of a lot of my friends who have been looking for places to live in Doraville in a similar location and have not been able to find them because the housing stock is so low. And something like this rezoning could really help that. For people that don't necessarily want a single family home or couldn't afford a single family home right now. And as long as we're talking about my street, which is McClave, and McClave is not involved in this proposal, but I think about the people who live in the house immediately behind the auto shop that is on the corner of Buford Highway and McClave. Like, I love McClave, but would I want to live in that house? And no disrespect to who does live there. I hope they love it, but I think that would be a challenging location to live in. And that's sort of the situation we're looking to avoid on these other streets, is that immediate move from a commercial zone like Buford Highway into an R1 zone like that street in Northwoods, Raymond Drive. So those are my thoughts on that. I also want to reiterate, because I've heard so many people concerned about several things, but one of them being that this absolutely doesn't, and I know other people have said this, but I just want to say it again, does not place any requirements on current homeowners. So it's meant to provide more attractive options to developers if and when these properties are sold. They might never be. We could pass this rezoning maybe in the fall and nothing could ever visibly happen in our lifetimes. And that's okay. We're just looking. There are no specific plans to develop these properties. The city is not in talks with any developers about these properties. But as the zoning currently stands, a developer who purchased one or more of these properties would have only one option, which would be to build a new single-family home, and maybe they would. But I wouldn't if I were a developer. I think it's like we've all said, these are busy streets. The likely outcome for these properties is that nothing will happen to them, and that results in stagnation. So that is the idea. I definitely hear you're concerned about traffic. And I think that in that case, developers could be our friends, believe it or not, in that we could require them to do traffic studies. We could, like everybody has said, require them to make some changes to the existing roads as a condition of them building whatever they want to build in these areas. And that could be a help and not a hindrance. I also have heard a lot of people concerned about the 4-story upper limit on these buildings. And that's the kind of thing that this whole process is meant to provide, as an opportunity for us to hear that kind of feedback and to take it back to Austin and to take it back among ourselves and say, okay, maybe 4 stories is too tall for these areas that we're proposing. Maybe we cut it to 3. We can do that. We can talk about it. I don't know who, obviously we have a long time to hash out all of those details, but those are the kinds of things we can change. We can also, if we wanted to, get a little more specific about what kind of commercial properties would be allowed on these corner lots. There's already a chart. I don't know if anybody spends a lot of time reading our ordinances, but section 23-902, there's a nice chart that shows you what kinds of commercial uses are allowed in all of these different R1, T3, whatever. So some things are allowed by right. Some things would be allowed with a conditional use permit. Other things, like I'm just looking at page 1, like a fraternity or sorority house would not be allowed at all. If anybody was concerned about that moving in next door. So I would encourage you to take a look at that chart just to kind of see what already would be allowed or not allowed, and think about if we would want to get more specific than what we already have on the books. And I have one question. That slide you have with the green arrows and red X's for commercial can only be on the corners, could we have 2 commercial on each corner, or is it just one? Do you know what I mean? Could you have 2 across the street from each other?
Yes.
Okay, Got it.
And I did neglect to mention too that for retail, the size is limited to 1,500 square feet.
1,500 square feet. Okay.
Forgot to mention that earlier.
Okay. I think that is all I have to say. Other than that, this is definitely not meant to be like a gateway to getting rid of all R1 zoning, like Decatur did, or like I think some people are worried about. This is definitely meant to be that buffer zone between R1 and different levels of zoning. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Evans.
Thank you, Mayor. Also, I remember the first meeting we had, I asked for any examples from other cities that may have already done this. Were you able to find any?
Yeah, so, well, Councilmember Henshaw stole my thunder a little bit. So Decatur was a local example. So citywide, they, trying to remember the exact mechanism. Effectively, I mean, there is no dedicated single-family zoning in Decatur anywhere anymore as of 2022, 2023, which is about the same time that they allowed accessory dwelling units on all the lots by right as well. You know, you went into a little bit the fact that that's had, which is not as much as, you know, there have definitely been some applications, but I think when we were talking about ADUs, I asked how many applications they'd received in the 3+ years since that's been allowed, and they had 8. So they have had some movement. Other places that I've looked at, so Raleigh and Durham in North Carolina, both allow duplexes and triplexes by right on all residential lots in the city. Minneapolis is another good one that allows up to 3 units by right. That's a pretty major city to do that. I hesitate to use California as an example in general, but there is a statewide preemption in California on single family zoning and for things like accessory dwelling units, which has had a noticeable impact, but California is a different animal to us. So.
Gotcha. And this was something you and Councilman Kuntz, it was this conversation that started there?
About the rezoning?
Yes.
Yeah, happening
Okay.
council.
Gotcha. And there's no developers, to my knowledge, that are already looking at some of these sites?
None that have spoken to us, no, sir.
Okay. And this is something I'm just on the fence of. There's so many concerns. One that comes to mind is I actually hear from a Dunwoody resident quite regularly related to the church off of Tilly Mill. Since they've been there, there's a soccer field in the back that they use with lights, and it floods into his backyard. I probably get contact at least once a week, a few times a month, about light pollution going into his backyard. Not a resident of Dorville, but it is something that's affected by, I guess you would call it a commercial building. So things like that kind of give me a real world example of what this could be, being that there is not a developer that's reaching out to us to pitch any of these proposals, whether it's multifamily or commercial or single family, et cetera. And for that reason, I think it may be an ideal to maybe try this on a smaller scale. It doesn't have to be the entire corridors we're talking about, but there's the lot right there on Chamblee Tucker could be zone T4 that if a developer wanted to come in, they could try that lot. I think it's just over 2 acres, for example. Shallowford, come in right out of Chamblee. It's been for sale or for lease for quite some time now, but no development there. They're just on the outside of Addison. And I'm in favor. Carrie actually mentioned having a traffic study. If we're talking about this through November, I think a traffic study would be a good idea. Where would the traffic be dumped? Going through the neighborhoods, using Waze, for example, would it go down Addison or Green Oak, et cetera, if there's more commercial in this area? And if this was to move forward, what I would also like to see is an increased buffer zone between the commercial and residential. And if that's something we can implement, then I think that would be a easier pill to swallow, being the fact that it is so close to residential R1 neighborhoods. So instead of, 20 to 40 feet, let's double it, make it 40 to 80 feet. And that way we don't have to maybe have light pollution concerns. It'll give more privacy, more space. It'll feel less crowded. Especially, I believe parking is going to be in the rear of these buildings if they're there, correct? As well as the dumpsters.
Yes, sir.
So there could be noise and smell pollutions that could be coming from that. That could be an issue. And then safety concerns. So if there's safer pedestrian zones or improved sight lines for pedestrians walking and cars coming in and out of those areas, And it also could be more landscaping, more green space, beautification projects with that additional space. And I know that's not in our current zoning, but it could be a factor just being how this placement could be. And that's something I would suggest and recommend. Also, maybe an opaque fence. So there's fencing between the property lines of commercial and residential that you don't necessarily have to hear or see any commercial cars or the headlights when people leave the business or going to it, come into your backyard. Let's see what else notes that I have. But that was my main concern. So I think just if redeveloping these corridors, if that's going to be the case, I understand it's a busy street, but we're talking about making it potentially busier, then what would that look like in the real world time? And if we already have some vacant lots that are ready to be redeveloped that has nothing on them in the same corridor, why not start there? That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Kuntz.
Yeah, I have a few things. Austin, T4 is residential zoning, correct?
Technically it's mixed use because it allows both commercial and residential.
But it's like 1,500 square foot. Like on Oak Cliff Road, there could be what, 4 1,500 square foot commercial businesses, something like that.
I don't know the number of corners, but yeah, you would only be allowed to put like a retail business on the corner and then an office on the ground floor elsewhere.
Okay, and then so we're not talking about like this is going to be like a commercial corridor. And I do think that there's a lot of misunderstanding. It's the same thing that happened when we did the citywide rezoning on Beaufort Highway to T5 from C2. The same folks came out telling, calling up residents, stirring up a bunch of stuff, making up things about what this was going to be.
Hold on just a second. You got it? Okay. You can go ahead.
But they were saying, there's going to be 10-story apartment buildings built right next to your house when we were actually reducing the impact. And like right now, if we leave it alone and we don't do anything, somebody can build a 3-story house very close to your property line with no buffer. And this is requiring the buildings be up next to the road, which means that they're going to be further away from your house. And if you look at the layout of most of these properties, I mean, I'm not at the meeting because I have COVID and I'm sitting out on my back porch. It's probably 80 feet from the back of my house to the property line. All these houses are set way back from the property lines. The lots are narrow, but they're real deep. And there's not going to be anything towering over people's houses unless we decide to move our houses to the very back of our lots, which is not what people are going to be doing. And when I hear people talking about there's going to be all this increased traffic, we're talking about a road that I was going to ask you this, Austin, but the traffic count on Oak Cliff Road, there's probably 10,000 cars a day driving down that road. And if you add 15 residences on that house, that's not going to be even a blip of change in the traffic. You'd have to add 1,000 houses on that road, which is not going to be possible with this rezoning that we're talking about doing. And another person brought up a concern about widening the road. One of the reasons for doing this rezoning is it requires any new development to be built up by the road, which would stop future road widenings from ever taking place, because GDOT's not going to come in, which is Georgia Department of Transportation. They're not going to come in and buy up a bunch of houses so they can widen a road, especially new construction. And this idea that the city should buy up all the houses on Oak Cliff Road and build some berm to protect the neighborhood, it is just mind-blowing that anybody thinks that's even reality. So, and I guess the last comment is somebody said that they'd heard that I wanted to increase the density on Oak Cliff Road so I could bus in a bunch of illegal immigrants and move them in to Doraville. And guys, I don't know where stuff like that's coming from. And I hope the majority of residents realize that that's just crazy. So, and we've got months to work this out. That's one of the reasons we're doing this process the way we are. Not only is it a state law, we have a public hearing. We all heard a lot of your concerns, which I agree with some of them. And we have time to try to adjust this T4 zoning to fit in a more residential scale, neighborhood scale, to, make it where it is an improvement to the neighborhood, which I think it will be. And that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. I hope you feel better. All right. Unless anyone else on council has something else they want to say, we're going to close this portion of the meeting, and we'll actually take a brief break.
I got just one comment.
Sure.
Yeah. So Austin, just to reiterate for everyone listening, I heard, yeah, my mic's on. Just to reiterate what I heard on some of the concerns, about massage parlors and all that stuff. We're still limited to the amount that can be built within X amount of people in certain areas, regardless if that's allowed. Even though we weren't talking about allowing them there, that's still
Correct.
a CUP, and there's only 4 roughly we can have in our city because of the amount of people we have, correct?
Correct. We're limited by population, 4 per 10,000. So we still only have 4 licenses, but that's not even allowed in the zoning.
Okay. Right. That's,
Not on
I
the
just
chart.
want, yeah, okay, there you go.
That was just a spurious comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that. Okay, it's not even on the chart, but yeah. All right, thank you.
All right. We're going to close this and take a brief recess. So you're welcome to stay or leave if you want.
You guys. occupant buildings. So if you have a commercial building that only has one suite, only allows one tenant, that's the only place they can go. To require that the building must be soundproofed. So even though they're the only ones in the building, they might have neighbors who might not enjoy the volume. Any exterior windows need to be transparent. We have had issues with this for a variety of commercial uses, but not having transparent windows, and then it's difficult to see inside. And if we ever had an emergency, things like that. And then also one of council's recommended additions was to limit the number similar, just basically copy the language that we have for massage parlors and limit the number of licenses that we're allowed to issue tied to the population of the city. So 4 per 10,000. So that would mean 4 licenses total. And then amending the use table to only allow them in T6 as opposed to T5 and T6. And my clicker is not working. There we go. So these are the only 2 areas in the city currently zoned for T6. Like I said earlier, in the previous case, between Central Avenue, 285, New Peachtree Road, and Buford Highway, in the kind of historic city center, and then the Lotus Grove property, the former Kmart. So just an aerial outline of what that looks like. The now old City Hall is on the bottom left there for context, and then the Lotus Grove site as well. Staff are recommending approval of this amendment. Planning Commission recommended approval, and they also added some additional restrictions in that code section I was talking about. So one requiring ID checks at the door. The second one was making them have a certain standard of lighting, though that was not defined at the meeting for exterior lighting. And then similar to the event venue that you guys saw last month at the Atlanta Eagles, requiring that they have a minimum number of police officers or security officers, depending on the number of patrons, which it was pulled from the standard operating procedure from the Doraville Police. So,
All right. Well, this is a public hearing, so why don't we go ahead and open it up to the public? Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this change, please come up to the podium and state your name and where you live, and you can have up to 10 minutes. Not seeing anyone, no one on Zoom. So anyone wishing to speak against, please come up to the podium, state your name, where you live. You can have up to 10 minutes. We have one hand up on Zoom. All right, Tom, you can unmute and state your name, where you live.
Okay.
We can hear you.
Tom Hart from Gordon Heights. We're back to the old nightclub thing again, okay? I would like to add a couple of things to this list of things that they can and cannot do. We only allow 1 murder or 1 death per location, and they lose their license. The reason why I say that, we've had nightclubs here before, but we had a problem with people killing people. One guy got shot in the head because they stole his hat, okay? And they wanted to give him his liquor license back. And I said, hell no. And that was when I was on the city council. You only get 1 murder per location. Everybody thinks this is going to be like, we're going to have a party at Buckhead, okay? And they want to put all this stuff right next to the MARTA station, which is the epicenter of crime in the city of Doraville. You guys don't, the problem is you guys don't learn from the history of the city, and you keep on repeating the same stupid stuff over and over again. Okay? So you want to put 4 nightclubs in the city, a city that has a history of having these problems. It's called the Hugo Rango Bridge because Hugo Rango got shot in the back of the head at the Eclipse nightclub in one of the shopping centers. You had somebody just murdered at the billiards party. You didn't learn your lesson about billiard parlors and open bars, okay? This city council is like every day is Groundhog Day with you people. You don't get it. So put a thing in there that you only get 1 murder per location, and that's it. You lose your license and the deal's over with. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak against? Not seeing anyone, so we're going to close the public hearing and come back to council, and we will see if Councilmember Kuntz has any questions or comments.
No, I like what the Planning Commission added, and I appreciate Austin taking our comments into the adjustments that you made. This looks good to me.
Thank you. Austin, I guess like for the lighting comment that they had, do we already have standards for lighting for,
We do.
so that would kind of be
It
duplicative.
would be redundant. It would be a bit redundant. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to ask that. Councilmember Evans?
Thank you, Mayor. That was one of my questions. I know we're a smoke-free city, but a lot of nightclubs allow smoking in some capacity, whether that's hookah or vaping. Is that something that potentially could be a part of this?
If you make the amendment.
I don't like smoking.
Actually, don't.
But I don't want to
actually
restrict
don't know
anybody
what-
else from.
I don't think it's,
Let's-
I don't think it's currently permitted within this, within businesses in the city.
Sorry, I'm sorry, Cecil. I'm running out of.
I'm pretty sure it's a local, like a city ordinance, but the city
Yeah, I actually don't know how.
prohibits it in all businesses right now.
Right.
So council would need to specifically say, we allow smoking in these clubs if you want to.
Well, we've got a no smoking ordinance, so we'd have to go back and revisit that.
So I'm not necessarily for it, but I can imagine it coming up if a nightclub were to relocate here and just trying to get ahead of that.
Yeah.
But I guess they could apply for a variance, or if that was the case, or is that?
There's that.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if
There's
you can
not.
apply for a variance for that, but
They'd have to open a smoke-free club if they wanted to.
I have a outside back patio.
But it's still within the city limits, so they couldn't smoke outside either, right?
I actually don't know what this, sorry, I'm.
Yeah, I don't
smoking
think that,
ordinance.
I don't think that it allows it even on back patios. So I think that that would be something that council would have to go back and address if you guys decide you want to address it.
I'm not going to prohibit it. I just brought it up. It probably will be something that comes up in the future, but I'll leave that be as it may. The map, the T5, it was the southern portion of our downtown corridor, but is it also the top end there, New Peachtree?
So here's an aerial view of what it is. So the city hall and library are on the bottom left with the green roofs. And then the boundary line is Central Avenue. And so the Salvation Army is the kind of big property in the middle of the block there.
Okay.
And the AT&T deck on the MARTA station is the property that's at the top there.
Gotcha.
For context.
And then Lotus Grove and.
It's just Lotus Grove. It's just the old, that what I've highlighted here, the old Kmart property.
And just. I don't understand nightclub. Can you talk to me like I don't know nightclub? Because I know a lot of restaurants and lounges I go to that have a dance floor and.
It is very tricky for us to enforce as well. The difference appears to just be if you have a dedicated, like a dance floor and a DJ booth, and you have a dedicated space for people to come in and dance as part of your business model. And I will say too, this use has been in the code and this definition has been in the code for a while. We only had the one gentleman actually since I've been here, make an application for it. We do, as other people have alluded to, we have had clubs in the past and we probably have some operating now, but what tends to happen is they apply as a restaurant and say they're a restaurant.
Right.
And then at 11 PM, they turn themselves into something else.
Is that applicable to this or not so much if it's a restaurant in daytime?
It's the same situation now as if we adopt this, like you're on paper, you're one thing and operating as something else per our code.
I don't think they could be a legal nightclub unless they're in the T6 zoning. Yeah.
Right. With this, yeah, they would, if they weren't in either of these two areas, they wouldn't be allowed to be there as that use. We'd have to amend the code to.
Future state, the Jewel Box in our new city center is a restaurant, but has a dance floor and music. Is that a nightclub?
Nightclub
The way-
would be
the-
permitted there though.
Yeah, the way you're describing it, yes, but it wouldn't be permitted there. So
It would not? It would be.
it would not, because we're.
If you look at the boundary, it doesn't include the old city hall. It's Park Avenue.
Oh, I see that. Thank you. Can we, I would be in favor of extending that to the old city hall if that's the case.
I mean, so right now it's permitted with a CUP in T5 and T6. This would take away T5. I.e. the old city hall or the city center location. So.
All right, that's all my comments for now, but I may come back to that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Henshaw.
Thanks. Again, I was out of town last month, so could you kind of rehash what went down with the Eagles building? Just
So Mr. Pineda, the owner of the Atlanta Eagles, he applied to be an indoor event venue. So in addition to his the restaurant that he has on the site, and then the indoor sports facility that he has where he has soccer leagues and indoor soccer games and things like that, he also applied for a venue because he would host concerts and I'm trying to remember, boxing matches and other like large scale events that require tickets in order to enter, not like a restaurant or anything where you can just walk, anybody can walk in.
so could he host a nightclub style event underneath his event permit?
I'm going to say maybe. I mean,
I guess we've talked about this in the past that, you know, we create ordinances, but that, let me rephrase. This council has worked hard to not create ordinances that are unenforceable. And we're dealing with that leftovers, and it's challenging sometimes when there's some kind of nebulous language and it's difficult to pin down. I know in the past, you know, the difference between a bar and a restaurant is a bar derives more than 50% of its profits from alcohol sales, and a restaurant derives more than 50% of its profits from food sales. You know, so maybe we need to look at codifying what a nightclub is, and is a majority of their profit made off of ticket sales, or is a majority of their profit made off of alcohol sales, or is, you know, so I don't know without understanding exactly what, because I think you were going to say the restaurant Eclipse de Luna,
Exactly,
which
yeah.
is, I go there once a month with my family and we have tapas and we listen to live music. And then at night there is far more dancing, but they are absolutely a restaurant first. And then they turn into, you know, a dancing restaurant in the evenings. And I would hate to prohibit something like that from coming in. If, you know, if the intent is, if that is a nightclub just based on the fact that it has dancing, I think we need to look at what a nightclub is legally, and versus just saying it's food service with dancing, because I don't know that that's accurate, or that it needs to be. Maybe it doesn't need to be accurate. So for me, I would like to kind of figure out how to hone in on what becomes an enforceable clause, so we can say, no, sorry, you're actually operating as a nightclub. You're not allowed in this zoning. You have to either change your business model or move, versus, oh yeah, oh, you want to build a nightclub? Yes, here's the zoning that you can do it in. This is what a nightclub is, versus this is what a restaurant that has dancing as an accessory use is. So to me, that would be what I'd like to see, because I love the idea of having multiple spaces throughout the city that can host events, but I don't want, if it becomes profitable for a business owner to only host nightclub style events, then they're only going to host nightclub style events. And I don't want to reward bad behavior through poorly written code. So for me, I just want to kind of step back, figure out how to better codify what each of these things is, and then apply it, whether it's T6 only or T5 and T6 or whatever it winds up being. I'd like to just figure that out first.
Do you have recommendations for how to read?
No, I mean, I mean, my initial instinct is just, you know, profit margins is, you know, if you make more than 50% of your profits off of alcohol sales and you have a dance floor, you're a nightclub. If you make 50% of your, more than 50% of your profits off of alcohol sales, you don't have a dance floor, you're a bar. And if you make, you know, if you have a bar and a dance floor and you still make a majority of your profit off of food, you're a restaurant that happens to have an accessory use, which is dancing. I imagine there's dancing at Jimmy's, you know, at night, there's a stage, there's dancing, but they make a vast majority of their money off of, you know, food sales. I think. So I'm that's my initial thought, but I missed last month, so I'm sort of
Well, if
behind.
he's going to go back, I think
Yeah.
we need to give.
I mean, this is a Cecil question. This is a council question. You know, but I don't want to create, can't have a nightclub. Well, what's a nightclub? Well, we don't really know what a nightclub is. So I just want to make sure we get that locked in before we put a seal of approval on something.
All right, Councilmember Armistead.
Cecil was coming up there.
That is a good question about Jimmy's. I've never been there in that back room in the evening when they have I'm not trying to rat anybody out. I'm just saying, like, if that is the kind of thing that we would not allow, I think that would be unfortunate. I don't know. This feels sort of like Footloose to me. Is it the presence of the actual dance floor that we're worried about? Is it if people get up and the spirit moves them to dance when they're eating? I don't know. I'm a little unclear as well, to be honest.
The way I've always
on the table
lost it,
now.
I'm not looking at it, but it is something we run into, and we've dealt with it for a long time. The sell tickets, you got to have what we gave the soccer venue last week to sell tickets, have a band, bring people in. You got to be an event facility, and that's what we did there. Yeah, the restaurants basically have to be food. The way we've talked about that in the past is said, you know what, a restaurant might have a band playing. That might be a thing, and it would be, a lot of times they'll have a band in the corner, a live band, but that's not the focus of it. And we have actually in the past literally said you have to have fixed tables so it can't become a dance club later in the evening. So that is how it was dealt with in the past. And basically everything had to, when you get into food sales and using that as your definition, that's really a tough one. You saw the ordinances we passed recently, so we could try to drill down on that. The reason we passed that ordinance is because it's almost impossible. I've never been anywhere that any staff felt like they really, really were able to drill down on that like they'd like. So it is exactly that. So like I said, we've had restaurants that went in and they had a stage, right? And they had a stage and bleacher seats. And they're like, we're a restaurant. We're going to have a buffet and we're going to sell more food than this. And we're like, yeah, but that's inconsistent. So we, had to say, I can't keep you from building that, but you need to know in advance that's a sunk cost you will not be able to use. So I think that is what you're trying to clear up with some of this, because it's always been, the reason I remember it is because we've been chasing it around for years. And if we could get clarity to it and hone in exactly how y'all liked it and wanted it, I think that would be good. And I do think we probably have venues existing that may at a certain time of night be more, not necessarily operating what we would say was what they were zoned. And that, I think, is also something we potentially are trying to flesh out and address here.
Yeah.
So those would be my thoughts. I do think it's not that could be right for handle it, get it all settled right now, and figure out if you want to do it.
Clears Matt.
Drops mic.
Anything else, Councilman? No. Councilmember Simmons?
Thanks, Mayor. Wow. It's good. Someone's never been to the back room at Jimmy's. I didn't know they had one.
Been there.
No, I haven't. That one, that's the back room? Oh, the one Gerald rents out?
There. There's tables.
So anyway, I just love hearing about the dancing at Jimmy's at night, supposedly. I just think of like 2 a.m, slow, and the bands that killed hair metal. It's like Nelson, Steelheart, and Firehouse probably playing. Who knows? Anyway, but seriously, like, I like the recommendations staff did. I like the plan commission. I don't want to be redundant though. So if that light ordinance is already there, because I think we were trying to clean up our ordinances so we wouldn't be redundant. But it was a great point made by the planning commission. So thank you. My one comment is, when you might need to educate me on this, when a restaurant comes in for an application, do they submit a furniture plan to you to sign off? So good. So we can hold the furniture plan to them when we go and look and see and do a checkup, because we can do spot checks.
Correct. And every new license application is required to submit a floor plan. And so that's often where
But furniture plan, like, I understand a floor plan does include the furniture layout.
correct. Yeah.
Tables.
That's often where
Perfect.
these discussions start, as we look at it and see a dance floor, see a DJ booth, see, whatever.
It's like the survey. There you go, Chris. There's our survey right there. Like, just have them stamp that, sign that. We check it. If it's like that, good. I think that covers us. You can't cover everything, but at least we have something to fall back on, and we can spot check. We can do the OTC. I know they check on that, and we can have them pull records. So that's good. Shoot, what was my other? I had one other question. I just forgot it. I guess come back to me, Mayor. I don't want to hold this up. I'll maybe remember it here in just a second.
All right, Councilmember Ray?
Yeah, thank you. First, just for some clarity, conditional use permits, those have to be reapplied for each year? No, that's once
Once they are granted, they run with the property.
with the
And
property.
they don't run with the applicant either. So if an applicant gets one and then leaves, the CUP remains.
Gotcha. Thank you. So yeah, so my general thoughts on this are I would count similar to what Councilmember Henshaw said. I want to avoid creating an ordinance that's hard to enforce or overly burdensome to enforce. And I want to kind of steer away from maybe policing things we don't need to. Nightclubs are probably a thing we do need to police, but the definition between a restaurant, a bar, and a nightclub, I think, can become a bit nebulous, especially with a bar and versus a nightclub. Most good bars I go to have a stage and live music, and after a few drinks, you might even see me dancing. And that's a good place to be. We've talked about allowing bars in the future as we build out this downtown. I want to make sure we're not limiting that. I personally have never been much of a nightclub guy. Hold your shock, but my understanding is the majority of nightclubs use DJs and not live music. And so maybe there's something around that we could focus on, or size of the property and building to determine if it's a nightclub or not. I don't know. My general thoughts on this is we don't have anyone knocking down the door trying to put a nightclub in place. The Lotus Grove property, as I've talked about before, is certainly taking their time. I would rather us wait on this, and if we can, I'll try to come up with better feedback for you, but revisit how we're going to define what a bar is versus a nightclub, because I think allowing an establishment that has a stage and live music, it's a good place for people to go to have a night out, is different than kind of a dimly lit nightclub that's set up. And I think we know the difference if we were to walk into one versus the other, but defining it is the hard part. And I think we should probably have that better defined before we start putting into the code what is and is not allowed. Because the way I'm reading this means we would basically not be able to have bars at any point either. Or you'd get 2 or 4 or whatever it is, and then you're stuck. So my general comment is that I think we'd be better off waiting on this and better defining that code. But if we were to move forward, I agree with the idea of removing the duplicative amendment from Planning Commission. So,
Councilmember Simmons first, then I'll go back.
I remembered my questions. So distance on nightclubs, I know we spoke about that last time. I saw it's 4 in per 10,000 people. So roughly 4 OTCs they can have in the city of Doraville. I know we talked about possible distance from each other, but with the small footprint, I don't think that's, doable or anything. And is that what you came to the conclusion roughly when we mentioned that?
Yeah, if the proposal limits it to only T6, which is a very small geographic area. So if you're adding distances on top of that, you're basically limiting it even further to maybe 1 or 2.
Yeah, because I'm fine with not distance after you see the footprint. I just wanted to bring that up because I know we brought that up last time. So restaurants that might have a band, and educate me again, do they need permits to get a permit for that? So we sort of know, are they supposed to get a permit?
So this is where it gets tricky because some of it is not just what you're doing, but how frequently you're doing it. So
that's why I asked.
So as Cecil said, I'm sure there's a lot of restaurants around Doraville every weekend that are having some kind of live music and entertainment. If it's happening every night that they're open, that's when we and they have a dedicated space for it. That's kind of when we start to, that's when we start thinking maybe this isn't just a restaurant, that kind of stuff.
That's the reason I get that.
It is gray. It's usually, just having done this for years, we kind of have a radar for when somebody might be lying to us about what they're doing. So sometimes it's not that hard to find it. But again, the problem is that, people will say one thing and then operate a different way. So.
Right, because I don't want to overburden our businesses, and I think it's going to come out if they're doing it, taking advantage of the situation, and then I don't want to sit there and over police that, and that's why I was just thinking permits, but I don't want to overburden them with that. I was just wondering. And then my other comment, I guess, is sort of for council and all. If I don't know, my thoughts on this would just be if we did pass or not pass it, we could tighten up the definition of a nightclub later. Correct? Was that the thought or no?
This is only a first read. So
right.
potentially we could try to tighten it up and push it. My suggestion would maybe be to ask code enforcement what they think some solid language would be, because they're the ones who are going to be enforcing it.
Yeah.
And maybe
Get it in.
proposing that and then coming back. And even if it's not ready, I know our moratorium expires, but even if it's not ready by that time, I think we still, you know, like you said, no one's banging down their door for this. So, you know, if we take our time and do it right, that's probably.
You know, that's a song, right?
And
Take your time, do it right.
Does the live music make
sounds like
I love it.
sounds like a nightclub song right there. But yeah, so
Yeah.
even if the moratorium did expire, they still have to do the OTC or
It would
variance,
have to go through,
variance, all that. They can't get grandfathered in. That's
it would still have to come to council right now.
Yep. That's why I asked. And I know if we pass it, then we tighten up nightclub, which we can do. It's either way works in my mind. Whichever.
Remember Henshaw?
I was just going to add that I was a club kid, and as I put on my reading glasses because I'm old now. But I used to go to the Masquerade for Freaky Foam Night. So for anybody who's you know, paying attention, that was a lot of fun. Not that we're looking for that in Dorville necessarily, but I think we can also extend the moratorium of an extra month if we need that one extra month to figure this out, or whatever that winds up being. But I agree that code enforcement, bringing them in just to see what's enforceable and what's not, would be a good idea. But I really, really don't want to exclude the Jimmys and the Eclipse de Lunas and the even like the Abuela Delicioso that has live music 3 nights a week. And we go eat at El Viejon, which is in Chambly, but they have a mariachi band 3 nights a week, and it's great. And I really don't want to create code that gets misinterpreted that, we can't go to Dorville, we can't have a band, we can't, you know.
Right.
And hopefully not add extra burdens on these existing businesses.
Yeah, correct. So I really want to think this through to make sure we get it right and that it's enforceable. And I was just going to reiterate that the CUP process is a multi-month process anyway. So even if somebody were to come tomorrow with this, it's still going to take months and months to get through that. So yeah, I'd love to just sit down with code enforcement and try to hash that out.
Okay. Councilmember Evans, you had something else?
Yes. I know Assembly is open container. Is City Center open container? It's not? Okay. So.
I thought the city center was. I
thought it was too.
We talked about it. I don't think we passed
The
it.
only open container district we've adopted is Assembly. We have talked about the city.
We talked about it. We hadn't done
So
it.
I'll propose, if this is the entertainment district, that's something we can bring back, that making an open container district. I would also like to add back the T5 portion, because I'm thinking of, and if we can copy, what is it? Rip off and repeat. What is the Battery doing? That they have the Punch Bowl, for example, that it's bowling, dancing, and live music all at the same venue, and it's open container.
I guess this is going to be a conversation, but I also think, you know, we just heard a lot of concerns about proximity to residential neighborhoods. Some of the T5 areas, I think, you know, there's some on the other side of Beaufort.
Yeah, the one
too,
Lotus
right?
Grove is close.
Well, that's T6.
Yeah.
T5.
I'm saying T5. You know, but
okay.
You might want to look at just a district then
Okay.
versus saying all T5 can be nightclubs.
The City Center district.
Yeah, just a suggestion.
Yeah. I mean, I would be interested in that. If it's going to be an entertainment district, then let's do that and not be the Grinch who stole Christmas. Go out and have some fun. And if that's the case, what are these other cities doing that we could just implement right here? Because it's working over there. I'm sure they have their problems too, but they're having All-Star Weekend at the Battery right now, and there's people out drinking and eating and dancing and doing everything. And maybe change the name. Maybe we're stuck on nightclub. Is there some other synonym we could use instead?
So we did run in, I mean, we had a version of this discussion a month ago, and basically where we ended up was we probably need to look at the whole alcohol ordinance, which is where that definition is coming from, because we also kind of got stuck again on like bars versus nightclubs and things like that. But that's a bigger ask than what we're talking about right now. So
yeah, I think it's worth the discussion. If it's an entertainment district, maybe that's the phrase, just to categorize this what happens inside the entertainment district. This is what's allowed, whether that's the city center or some other proposed site. I see Cecil coming this way, so.
Option open, because that's a whole different animal where you can come in and just define an area, say this is its own district, and here are the rules for this district. The one that everybody has is they have a open container district, right? Between this street and this street and this street and this street, walk around with your open container, no problem. So we wouldn't probably want to make this synonymous with that, because this is the reality. Is the more I'm sitting over here thinking about it, the real difference is they still have to theoretically meet food sale requirements, right? Because everybody has to meet it to serve alcohol in the city. What this has always come down to is the dance floor. And as I started remembering conversations we've had over the years, because if you have a restaurant and I have the mariachi band over there and I feel it, I can stand up next to my table and dance around. Nobody can stop me. But it's different if at 10 o'clock, we pull all the tables out and we put a thing out that says from 10 o'clock, we're dancing, big dance venue, right? And we hold it out as a venue. Ticket sales, events. Nobody can ever have ticket sales. So that is the rules right now, those three things. And literally, we had a big fight with somebody right when I got here about they were basically building a stage and bleacher seating and all that. And I was like, they can build it. They just can't use it. And we had to tell them that. And then I remember one and they didn't end up doing it, but we said, this is a dance floor. So we needed to make them, and I don't necessarily agree with this. Okay. This was not me saying nobody gets to dance, and that's not me. But we did say, yeah, you're going to have your tables fixed to the ground. So you can't at 11 o'clock, everybody just pulls them back and says, dance. So it's almost the connotation is it's a coordinated part of the venue is to, after 11, we dance. It's weird, but that's what it is. And
really quickly, I'll get to Councilmember Armistead in a sec, but I guess I'd also just ask council, we probably should try to help staff by keeping this to the topic of nightclubs for now, because like Austin said, a bigger look at the alcohol ordinance is like a much bigger project. And we've already asked them to do this major rezoning that's going to take months, and we're working on other projects. So I think you've heard multiple times, like a priority, going into next year probably will be looking at the alcohol ordinance and, looking at what we can do it. But I would suggest to all of you, at least in this conversation, let's try to, even though the definition of nightclub is hazy, let's try to define it in a way that we're comfortable with, and then hopefully agree to something, but then like with the plan to address the rest of the alcohol stuff in the future.
Just to give you my feedback, because it's gotten me thinking enough that I think I have some relevant feedback on this. I think what you'd probably be talking about at the end of the day, and not to jump in, feel free to disagree and we can fix it later. But what you might be talking about is just part of an operational plan, right? Because right now I don't let you officially say we dance at 11, right? It's just we don't let it happen. And maybe that's the big difference is we do. You can advertise it. You can say, food till 9, then we salsa competitions, and that makes a nightclub, because you've changed it from the expectation of sit down meals to the city knows there's an expectation that this place sort of opens up and we have some fun later. But under the current ordinance, under the current rules, you still have to meet your food sales. As we've already said, that has all the problems that come with that, but theoretically they have to meet their food sales. So, it can't be too wild of a party after that, or else they're not going to meet those food sales. No way, no how. Okay. That's
Councilmember Armistead.
Thank you. That's helpful. And no, you're good. I would just, conjunction with this, I guess we need to think about what exactly we're worried about. I mean, when we denied that nightclub request before, it was because we were worried about traffic, which I think was totally valid. We were worried about noise because they were part of a larger complex. Yeah, parking. That's what I meant. Sorry, not traffic, but getting in and out of their parking lot. But assuming that they are, we already have noise ordinances for these businesses. I don't know. I think we need to clarify what it is that makes music. So
I think to your point, in the current ordinance and in the proposed stuff, like it is still a CUP. So there is some legwork that we have to do in making a determination on, does this meet how we have typically interpreted this? But like, ultimately with the CUP process, you guys get to determine based on their specific circumstances, is this gonna work well, and is this gonna be a benefit to the area? And in that case, we said no for all the reasons that you outlined, but it might be yes for somewhere else on Buford Highway. So I think that's the upside of it being a CUP, is that you get to analyze it on an individual basis for something that, I mean, really there is a breadth of ways that these people can operate that we've seen. So.
Anyone else? All right. Well, it sounds like this will come back next month. And maybe we'll have a definition from what code enforcement thinks it should be.
So to summarize, talk to code enforcement, try to add an amendment to the definition that maybe makes a little bit more sense or makes it clear. And then Councilmember Evans mentioned adding it back into T5.
I like to clarify if the city center is open container as well, if we can find that out.
It is not. I mean, I can tell you it's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that like all I heard was maybe the city center like district, not necessarily all of T5, which I think would be a lot more expansive right now. And I think that that's probably a good starting point versus blowing it up and having it everywhere.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
One last question. By this definition, 1 per 10,000 residences, we're about 14,000. So that's 4. Oh, it's 4. I'm sorry.
4 per 10,000. So,
okay. I'm sorry, I misread that. All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Next, we have the consent agenda. And would anyone like to make a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion. Oh, Warren's got it.
All right, we have a motion and we have a second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Great. All right, now we do not have an executive session tonight, thankfully. We have council comments. I'm going to start just by apologizing to Councilmember Kuntz for some of the abuse that she has had to suffer at the hands of certain members of the community. I find it difficult to listen to some of the things that I've had to listen to that are mean-spirited and transphobic. And, honestly, sitting in this position, when I've been instructed that everybody gets to say their 3 minutes, even if they're talking about drawing and quartering us, I think that it's a fine line. But Councilmember Kuntz, I apologize for what you've had to endure personally. I think that a lot, and honestly, Councilmember Armistead, you too, there has been a lot of misogynistic, anti-trans rhetoric from many different parts of our society. It's not okay. So I apologize that you've had to endure that. Councilmember Kuntz, start with you.
No, I don't even know where to start. It's like, my name's Steffi Kuntz. I'm a trans woman. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And, for people, I know the president of our country has told you that it's perfectly okay for you to be hostile, abusive. You can do whatever you want to transgender people. And some people have taken that as gospel that I can just be mean and ugly and do whatever I want. And I haven't officially announced this, but I'm not running for re-election. One of the reasons I'm not is because of not only that, but the comments that come from too many residents that have been thrown at me that I don't care. You don't care about the city. You don't do anything. Y'all do nothing. And I've spent the last 8 years of my life trying to make this city a better place. I've had 275 hours of municipal training that I've paid for a lot of out of my pocket. I went to Leadership DeKalb. I've spent easily 10 grand of my own money training myself and going to seminars and going to things to learn more about how to make this city a better place. And then I have a meeting like this tonight where the majority of the people get up and say that you don't care. Y'all are trying to ruin the city. Y'all don't know what you're doing. And I'm just tired of it. And I'm ready for y'all, all you folks, and I'll call out some of these people too, not by name, but several of these people that are the most abusive. They've ran for public office multiple times and lost. So clearly the public does not agree with you. And you come in these meetings saying, I'm here to represent this Northwoods, or I'm here to represent Gordon Heights, or I'm here to represent. You're not representing anybody, because if you were an excellent representative, you would have won an election and you'd be sitting up on the dais. And I know this is just, I never thought I'd have to make a council comment like this, but after being told and then being threatened that this person is going to come deal with me man to man, that's, to me, sounds like that he wants to come kick my ass or physically assault me. And that's perfectly fine with the community because I'm a trans woman. And this is just a pathetic state that not only our country is, but that some of the residents of our city have become. Just all I can say is y'all are just some horrible human beings.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Evans.
I just want to thank our staff. Thank you all for being here, our officers as well. I had the opportunity to come to our luau today that was celebrated by the staff and Crystal and the rest of the staff members put on. It was great. One of the police officers cooked gallons of food, would you say? A lot. Barbecue and macaroni, etc. It was a great event. It was a celebration of successfully moving over to this building, which I think was executed very well. So thank you all for all the hard work that you all put into transitioning from Buford Highway to Peachtree Boulevard. It was very well done. And I'm glad that we are now celebrating in our new quarters. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Henshaw.
Yeah, I'd like to, I mean, I came for the party. I'm sorry I missed you. It was great. It was nice to see people relaxing and enjoying it. And one of the staff members mentioned that a lot of companies throw parties reactively. They have events for their staff because something bad happened and they're trying to make their staff feel better. And Doraville doesn't do that. Doraville is proactive. And he even made the comment that they hold these events regularly, or events like this regularly, and the staff really feel appreciated. So I like that happens. I'd love to see that continue. So who's ever throwing these parties, keep throwing them. It's great for staff morale, but it's just good people business. And it's ultimately the people that sit up here and the people that sit in the city buildings and the officers that are out on the roads. They're people, and a lot of them are residents and neighbors, and they work really hard for you. So that's that. Then I want to comment, Steffi, you're one of the strongest women, human beings, trans people that I know. Your struggle, I can't even begin to imagine how much effort and energy you've put into just existing over the years that the average human being would never have to do. And then to come out and smile and put in the work and spend your own money and time to be unappreciated, underappreciated, lashed out, and attacked is pitiful that people do that. I have no problem. I posted a sign on my own private property for months when my road flooded, when my basement flooded, because the city wouldn't take any action. I absolutely believe that you have the First Amendment right to say what you want, where you want. You also have the First Amendment right to be a dick, pardon my language. And tonight we saw that in full effect. You don't catch flies with vinegar, you catch them with honey. Be polite, be kind, be proactive, come here with suggestions on how to make things better instead of lashing out at the people that are up here, or lash out and get nowhere. That's up to you. So thank you to the staff. Thank you to council for continuing to do this. It is a thankless job. We know that the thanks don't matter. Being attacked matters. It's frustrating to say that we don't know what we do. We're only out here for ourselves. I can imagine a more thankless job. So, you know, again, you have our phone numbers, you know where we live, you have our email addresses, you can come talk to us. And we do, we listen to your comments, we write them down, we talk amongst ourselves, we try to make our decisions as best we can for the city. So yeah, obviously come vote your conscience when any of us are up for re-election, but don't threaten us physically. Don't lash out like children. It's just a negative dialogue, and it just does nothing to move anything forward. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Councilmember Armistead.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. Yeah, I guess I'll just reiterate that. Well, I won't reiterate. I'll say before I was up here doing this job, I didn't realize everything that went into it. I don't think anybody does. And I think that the residents of this city are actually really lucky to have a group of people up here that care a lot. We might not always agree with each other, but I know everybody up here has lost sleep over trying to make good decisions for the city. And I would just like to thank all of you guys for caring and for putting in the work. And again, like you all have said, there's nothing wrong with disagreeing. There's nothing wrong with having a different opinion, but it can be rough when you're getting that kind of abuse from your neighbors. We all live here, so maybe keep that in mind.
Thank you. Councilmember Simmons.
Thank you, Mayor. Few comments. Councilmember Henshaw, I would have bet the house you were at the luau with that shirt. So I thought you were there with that one.
I had a different Hawaiian shirt on at the luau.
Man. Secondly, Councilmember Kuntz, we're definitely all behind you. Like, we got your back, and thought you looked very lovely today with all the makeup. Or it was either that or the light you had on. That was a good light you had going on there. But no, you look great. So we're there behind you. Don't sweat any of that, but understand everything you're going through and feel you. But I want to give kudos to the city of Atlanta for the All-Star Week they put on for the game MLB. They did a jam-up job over there at Truist Park. Everything they had, the communication was great. The festivities were great. They had this all-star village every day for kids that you could have gone and played all these games, won all these prizes. The all-star game last night was crazy. It was awesome. Ended in a tie. Then they had a swing off, which was one of the first. It was great. National League One, of course. Thank you. And home run derby was good. So kudos to them. You know, in 2021, they canceled the all-star game from coming here because of voting rights. You know, hadn't changed. It's back here. They did a great job, brought a lot of money into the city, and kudos to them. So that's all I got.
Thank you. Councilmember Ray.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm in agreement with everything everyone said. I appreciate you guys. I think I'll be a little topical. You guys can hear me talk about zoning just a little longer. But I want to just say, you know, it really is awesome to see the amount of people who come to be engaged to talk about these things. I think it's awesome that we have a community that does care. But I do want to, you know, iterate the idea here of mutual respect. I promise you, I'm not up here. I promise you, no one's up here because they're trying to make the city worse. We have reasons behind why we think certain things are good ideas. That's not to say we're infallible or always correct, but we have those reasons. And I really, truly believe in the power of debate and open dialogue. And so it would have been awesome to see the amount of people who were here email me or call me a couple weeks ahead of time to talk through these reasons and to try to better understand one another and those problems and concerns. So I just want to take this time to just say any chance you get, please reach out, give me a call. I like debate. I like to talk about these things. I like to defend my position, and I even enjoy being convinced that I'm wrong of things. But it's hard to do that in this setting when we can't talk back and forth. It's much easier over the phone or over a cup of coffee where we humanize one another and understand each other's concerns. So thank you again to everyone who did come. I think it's great to see you all here. And please reach out more often. Let's talk about concerns we have for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Could we get a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Okay.
All right, a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.